It's my immense pleasure and an honor to have such eminent personalities as speakers for today's program. We are fortunate and are excited to have a great learning session. Let me take this opportunity to introduce you all the first speaker of the day, Mr. Dennis Groenveld, is a Google practice head at Wipro. His area of expertise is workplace transformation and collaboration. Dennis manages a global team of people that have always worked from home, something that has proven very useful in today's COVID-19 world. Dennis' home basis is London, UK. Dennis started his career in 1987 in the Dutch Royal Navy, where he ended his career on a guided missile frigate. From 1992 onward, Dennis has been working in IT and has seen the paradigm shifts from maintaining computing computing via client or the server technologies to cloud computing. Dennis lives and breathes cloud, which he calls a lifestyle rather than a technology. Dennis is a Formula One enthusiast, enjoys the beach and the long evenings with the friends around the barbecue. I welcome you for the session, sir. It's an honor to have around us today Mr. Mohan, practice head, Wipro Limited. Thanks for always being with us, sir. I take this opportunity to introduce him. Mohan Kumar is working as a practice head of Wipro Limited. His area of expertise is in digital technologies. He has 32 years of IT experience and has been associated with Wipro Limited for more than 13 years. He holds electrical engineering degree and an MBA in HR. He has been elected as Fellow of Institute of Engineers, India. He is currently involved in community projects in the area of youth leadership and provides mentorship to students pursuing engineering, management, and other courses. He takes interest in the initiative of Rotary International and deeply involves in environmental initiatives. He is a part of the Board of Studies and is also a member of industry, academia, advisory committees for several colleges and universities and contributes to National Assessment and Accreditation Council, NAC, and National Board of Accreditation, that is NBA, assessment representing the industry. It's my proud privilege. So welcome, sir. It's my proud privilege to always have you on our board, Mohan, sir. It's my proud privilege to introduce Gavin Williams, our third speaker. He is a senior partner for cloud consulting, Wipro Limited, who will be joining us a little later for the program. Gavin has 25 years of experience in enterprise customers, helping them drive business success through innovative technology solutions. Gavin works with different customers throughout UK and Europe to understand their business needs and help them to set technology strategy and the direction. With particular focus on customers who wish to re-gear their IT organizations and services within the context overall ITS and hybrid cloud, he helps them to set the destination vision and architecture of their new cloud-based enterprise. Gavin has an in-depth and extensive knowledge of customer business challenges with board-level messaging. He holds a master's in business and economics and a strong background in financial and service delivery integration. I welcome all the participants, delegates, and my fellow colleagues once again for the program. Over to you, Mr. Dennis. It's a pleasure to have you on the board.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Today I'm joining you from Spain. It's truly an honor to be allowed to speak to you all today. The presentation that I have prepared for you is, as was published, all about Google technologies and how they are enabling business transformation. Now, it might go and turn to, I wouldn't say a shock, but a twist in it that you might not expect, because business transformations are typically not fueled by technologies. They're inspired by changing the way people work and changing cultures. So a lot of the presentation I will be talking about what creates a great culture supported by technologies coming from Google that transform the way we do business. I've been kindly introduced already, so I am going to skip this part. I will only be repeating what has already been said. So first, I'm going to have 4 or 5 slides that will seem at the beginning a bit unconnected, but hang in there. They will fall into place later on. First, I want to throw a couple of quotes at you all that will set the stage of what I'm about to say. The first one by Peter Drucker, quote made famous by an old president of the Ford Motor Company, that is, "Culture eats strategy for business." The second is the Google mission statement, and that is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. And most of us all see that happening in their daily lives by the search engine. Google.com even has become a verb. We're Googling things. And the last one is Moore's law, that says that the number of transistors in an integrated circuit doubles about every 2 years. Then in popular language, we always say, oh, computers get twice as fast every year or so, or have twice the number of memory, things like that. But this was his actual quote. The last quote that I love most of all comes from Richard Branson. He's the chairman of the Virgin family, I would say. And that is, clients do not come first, employees come first. If you take care of your employees, they will take care of the customers. And that's like a polar opposite to other people's beliefs. So it's also not a matter of right or wrong. Steve Jobs, for instance, always said, you need to start at the customer experience and work your way back to technology. So that was typically a customer first approach. And I think both are right, to be frank, but I lean a bit more towards Branson rather than Jobs. The next thing that, which is a bit unconnected still, but as I said, it will follow in its place, are Google's products. Now, many of you will probably know Google.com as a search engine. You'll probably know Google Maps or maybe Gmail. And Android, I guess. But at this moment, Google has between 100 and 200 products that are available to the market and to enterprises in particular. I haven't listed them all. Click on the link once if you're interested. But what they all have in common is that Google's products and services were never initially developed to be brought to the market. They were all developed for internal use only. And right now, in the last 3-4 years, Google has started turning their product suite inside out. So everything that they used to use for internal use is now being made available for the market, for companies to buy and to build on. So I think that's important to understand. Everything Google sells has been used internally for sometimes more than a decade and is now being made commercially available. Now, it is not true that if you start just simply using Google's products that you are going to get the same success as Google had. And Google had quite some success. There is at this moment 9 services within the Google ecosystem that have more than 1 billion users. If I would need to mention them, those are Gmail, Google Chrome, Google Drive, Maps, YouTube, the Play Store, Android, and Google Search. 9 services with more than 1 billion users. Now, you can't simply start using Google's products and say, well, now I'm going to get those billion users as well, because that's where the next things come in that I'm about to say. And that has to do with company culture and the way you organize your business. So why do companies choose Google at this moment? And here I can lean on experience from whatever Wipro is doing in the market. And I'm working here for, what is it, 8 years or so. Most companies choose Google technologies because they want to empower and connect their people. They want effortless ways to share ideas. They want to be part of a globally scalable platform. And what I mean with global scalable is an enormous amount of users that you can service at the same time. Take, for instance, YouTube. At this moment, it is so that every minute, 8 hours worth of video content is uploaded into YouTube. So that is a very steep exponential curve when it comes to bandwidth necessities and disk storage. Google is the only platform, I would argue, in the world at this moment that can handle that. They want smart applications that get back to what matters. And with smart applications, we mean these tiny tidbits that help you save a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes time. Think about auto-completing a sentence, using natural language in a spreadsheet rather than teaching yourself how SQL works. Companies buy Google technologies because of its security aspects, and simply because it is always accessible on secure and low-cost devices. Now, moving on, a Google product will always have 3 themes, if you will, that differentiate them. First of all, a Google project is designed to be co-everything. It is always designed for team engagement and effortless real-time collaboration. So teams working together rather than individuals doing things in isolation. The second property is something that I touched on before. Google will call that the 10 times technology. It is always built on a modern, scalable, high-performance infrastructure that powers products like Search, Gmail, YouTube, and Android. And the beyond productivity theme is probably the third. Google will always look at machine learning means to help you do your business faster. Now, if I look to the market at this moment, let's have a look what's different now as opposed to what has happened in the past with businesses. And this is a table that I show quite often to potential new customers to Wipro. And that is the time it took to serve 50 million users in an industry. And let's go completely to the top. It took the airline industry to welcome its 50 million passenger 64 years after the industry started. Automobiles, I think that was kind of powered by Ford Motor Company. They're the first automobile company that was able to mass produce cars. It took the automobile industry 62 years to hit 50 million users. Telephony, Groenveld, 50 years, we had the 50th million subscriber. And let's go down a bit. When computers came, and with computers I mean personal computers, it took 14 years to hit the 50 million user mark. Mobile phones, 12 years. It says here internet, but I'm sure it means the web. It took 7 years to hit the 50 million user mark. Facebook did it in 4 years. WeChat in 1 year. And Pokemon Go in 19 days. Now, if you analyze these numbers, you can really see that it is Moore's law that I started talking about before, and the accessibility to cloud computing that allowed companies to service more customers in an ever so more faster way. And there is more, by the way, on that 19-day mark. Pokemon Go, I thought, was just an hip, trendy one that people recognize. Now, let's have a look on at how companies get to these these fast growing and fast penetrating um, products and services. It is not the case that these things are being developed and thought of overnight. And you know, all these so-called overnight successes, if you really dig into it, there is probably years worth of hard work into it before that actually got launched, with a lot of failures as well. And let's have a look what Google's parent company, Alphabet, is currently up to. And some of these that I'm about to show might even be might have been scrapped already. You've heard me say Alphabet. Alphabet is the parent company to Google, and there is many other companies that are part of that. You might have seen in the news, DeepMind is, for instance, one that deals with artificial intelligence. Loon, I've got a picture of that later. They do internet access via high altitude balloons. And the picture here is part of the health companies that Alphabet has, where scientists are creating a contact lens for on your eyes, obviously, with a little chip in it that can measure the glucose levels of your tears, and thereby making sure that people who have diabetes, for instance, don't need to stitch themselves in their finger every day to get blood out to measure their glucose levels. It's being done on an ongoing basis. Has not hit the market, could even have been stopped already. Let's look at another one. This is Project Loom. It's high altitude balloons that are hovering over areas where there is no infrastructure to get access to internet. And there's quite some parts in Africa at this moment where these balloons are hovering over. The next one, that's a prototype of a self-driving car. By now, by the way, Google has abandoned the idea that they come up with a car. They just make the software at this moment and sell that to car manufacturers who want to get into the self-driving car industry. And if I look at the shape of this prototype, I can also understand why this never will go to market. Who would buy that one? The last one is, I think, a great story, and I'll tell the story a bit later in the presentation. This is a Google Cardboard. It is a virtual reality device. I'll dive into it later, but keep this on in the back of your mind, because I'm going to touch on that example a couple of times. So how did everything get so different? How did it come that the market is moving so much faster? We're addressing so many users so much faster than we've ever did before? Well, Google says that this is the answer. The answer is that all the world's information and media is online today. Mobile devices mean that anyone can reach anyone, anywhere, at any time at this moment. And cloud computing makes sure that you have a supercomputer in your pocket. And I think that that's something that the current generation sometimes forget, because they take it for granted. As soon as you type something in on your phone, you get your answers by just touching a touch screen. But if you look back only 10 years ago, that wouldn't have been possible. So people have a supercomputer in their pocket at this moment that would have fitted in huge office buildings not even 3 decades ago. Now, what does that mean for businesses who transform the way they do business and come up with new product market combinations? Well, the trend is that every incumbent is vulnerable to competition and disruption. Because technology is driving change and innovation, and those who fail are really being overtaken. The picture here shows Uber disrupting the taxi companies. It's an obvious one because it is always hitting the news, but look what is happening today, and maybe this is a bit of a dangerous statement ahead. During the recent COVID crisis, we've seen the downfall of retail. And with retail, I mean the high street brands, um, groceries and all that, they do pretty fine. But was that really COVID that accelerated that downfall? If you look at, if you ask stockbrokers and financial analysts, they would argue that the value of these high street brands have been in decline for more than a decade, and COVID just accelerated that. Now, and why is that? They didn't really keep up with technology and how that could improve their position in the market. There's also examples where it did well. Look at Amazon. Amazon is huge at this moment, so big that there is a lot of governments that start thinking about how do we stop them a bit, because they're becoming a monopoly. But let's not forget, when Amazon started, they were a bookshop. They were just a bookshop with a vision, and turned themselves into what they are today. Now, one noteworthy problem I have to add here, and that is that legislations all around the world are not capable up with the borderless internet technologies and the applications that it brings along. So you see a lot of moves at this moment all around the world where governments are trying to stop or slow down the new kids on the block, because they're disrupting existing industries in such a fast way. Now, as said, transformation is happening at an unprecedented pace, and it's accelerating, and that's where Moore's law comes in. And I'm sure that if I would have the chance to speak to you in a year's time, then I can show you the companies that hit the 50 million user mark in less than 90 days. Maybe it gets to 19 hours or so. At the other side, what you also notice at this moment in that ever-transforming business is that the power is shifting from companies to consumers, and their expectations have never been higher. If you are buying something online, or you want to take a vacation, everyone is looking up reviews online. So the power of the consumer, powered by technology, is really dictating how companies are behaving. If you're not getting into that 4 or 5 star category, you will see a slowdown of your business. And meanwhile, within companies, power has shifted as well. It is now individuals and small teams that have massive impacts. And this is where I want to tell the story about that cardboard that you've seen. Google Cardboard, you can look it up online, just search for Google Cardboard, was developed by two persons in the French office of Google, in the Paris office of Google. And one of these, you've got to understand, at Google, people have 20% time. So 20% of your time, you can do whatever you like. And with whatever you like, I don't mean that you can take a nap, but you can start your own projects. You can investigate your own ideas. No management sign-off needed, your own initiative, 20% of the time. And there was a French engineer in his 20% time. He got his hands on the Oculus Rift. It's now owned by Facebook. A pretty expensive device that allows you to play virtual reality games or walk around in a museum. Well, virtual reality. And as a good engineer, he didn't start playing with it, but took a screwdriver and opened the device. And lo and behold, he figured out that all the components that were in these Oculus Rift are pretty much to be found in your. I get a message here to share my screen. Is my screen not showing anymore? If someone can beat me if my screen is visible. I don't get any feedback here, so I'm going to carry on. Thank you very much. Yeah, French engineer opens Oculus Rift and sees all these components can be found in a mobile phone. He took a bit of cardboard, cut a device out, put two lenses in front of his phone, and for less than $10, he created the same functionality as what Facebook is now selling for hundreds of dollars. So with this, you can see so. Am I back and is my screen visible? I hear a yes, so I'm going to carry on. The other example is, for instance, Google Maps. Google Maps, developed by two Danish guys. They became Australian citizens later on, the Rasmussen brothers. They thought that you need to be able to do more things with a map. Got some investment from Sequoia in the Bay Area. They bailed out of them. Google bought them. And I think Google Maps at this moment is the most widely used navigation system that people have in their pockets. So here you see no business plans by large corporations, individual and small teams. Those are having the massive impacts. Now, why does this work at Google and not in many other companies? Well, first of all, it is because information is secured and hoarded and not shared in most companies. Most companies think that failure is expensive and decision-making powers lies in the hands of the few. Now, if you look at the type of people that work at companies such as Google, but the same applies for Apple or a Facebook or an Amazon or the likes of that, or people in the fintech industry, is where you see that the power of creating new product and product market combination is not part of a business plan, governance, or what I call the bean counters, the people who are in charge of finance. Things are changing so fast that the old-fashioned, thorough MBA-style business plan is really bound to fail. And smart, creative people know this, and they will even be scared to put their idea in a formal business plan. You know, that French engineer that created Google Cardboard, it wouldn't have come into his mind to create a business plan for that. He was just creating something new. And I would even argue the whole virtual reality and augmented reality space of Google would not have been there if you would have forced that person to create a formal business plan. So what we can learn from that really is that most companies at this moment are slow by design. And that doesn't work in the internet century. You cannot be slow by design. You've got to move fast. You've got to be agile. So what does work? Well, first of all, the people that have the biggest impacts are the ones that we call the smart creatives. And smart creative people are people who combine their technical knowledge, their business expertise, and creativity in everything they do. And I'm going to show you a picture now about how that looks like at Google. This is not an uncommon thing. This is a small Friday afternoon, and they call it TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. Now, if you would have given this bunch of folks to a business leader in the 1950s, that person would have resigned. But these are actually the smart, creative people that develop and think of all these products that we've come to know and love. So how do you do that? How do you create a bunch of people that are smart, creative, and come up with new ideas without formal business plans? Well, first of all, you need to create an environment where they can thrive at scale. And first of all, you need to attract these smart creatives, and you can't fool them easily. They really smell bullshit from a mile away, if I must phrase it popularly. And most of all, they can work anywhere. So be honest. The second thing is that it needs to start with culture. Smart, creative people need to care about the place that they work for. They need to feel part of it. And it seems, it has shown now that it works best if you have small creative people who work in small teams. Keep them busy, keep them inspired, and allow them to work in the way and the rhythm that they like to work. The second thing, organize companies by around the people whose impact is the greatest. At Google, managers report to the engineers, not the other way around. That is probably the biggest one that drives the Google culture. And when they communicate, the default is open. Maximize the velocity of communication and be as open as possible. Newton, I believe, was the one who said, if you think I'm successful, it was only because I've been able to stand on the shoulders of giants. Well, if the giants around you do not disclose their information because it's behind passwords, shared drives that you can't access, how on earth are you ever going to be able to stand on their shoulders? So information needs to be open and available to everyone. Ideas come from anywhere. So maps and our cardboard example, it's a great, those are great examples for it. But I've touched on this before. Don't base your venture on a plan. You need to base a venture on a strategic foundation. And that foundation is culture. How are you going to make sure that your people are going to be able and allowed to give their best to you as a company? Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have a plan. You've got to have a plan. But you need to make sure that your plan will change, and probably a lot. Your plan is going to be fluid. The foundation needs to be stable. Nice sidestep, Netflix, for instance, they thought of becoming a streaming service right at the beginning. But the technology was not available yet to make that work, so they resorted back to shipping DVDs over the mail. And when tech caught up, they resorted back to their initial plan and were prepped for it like no one else. And Netflix is the big winner at this moment. So a great foundation on which you make your plan has 3 pillars. You've got to come up with superior products and services. You need to optimize for growth, not for revenue. Revenue will follow automatically. Optimize for growth. And know your competition, but do not follow them. Steve Jobs once mentioned that he never did consumer research for a new product. They just want what they have right now, just cheaper and faster. And that's not how you create a new product category. Then set unattainable goals, and this might sound strange. And then fail, but fail well. What do I mean with that? An unattainable goal, you can see it in one of the movies, Back to the Future, where Marty has these self-tying shoes. Well, Nike sells it now, self-tying shoes. Or let's look at the 1960s or 70s in the Star Trek series. Captain Picard on the bridge of the Enterprise saying, "Computer," on screen, holding a tablet in his arm. And Scotty, beam me up. Warp drive. Now, I'm not saying that all these things are possible, but if I look, for instance, at Scotty, beam me up, Google actually did some research if teleportation was going to be possible. They figured out that it wasn't, so they failed, and they failed well. But in the meantime, they discovered new encryption methods that are now part of the infrastructure. So here we see there is no plan. You end at a different destination, but you will invent new things just by trying stuff and set unattainable goals. Don't be afraid to fail. Just fail fast and move on. One of the last things that would depict a Google type of culture is that those organizations listen to the lab coats, not the suits. You need to give the engineers the freedom to produce prototypes, not slideware. And as said, all you need is a big idea. Ask yourself not what will be true in 5 years, but what could be true, and work towards that. And then make a bet on that future. And remember that big bets are sometimes easier to achieve than small ones. And the reason that big bets are easier to achieve than small ones is that they attract the best people. Now, this ends a bit my story around culture, and now I'm going to zoom that back on business transformation. So everything that those people do at Google that I've just described, that culture in which they work and in which they thrive, that is fueled by technology. That is fueled by technology that is able to reach billions of people. And those cloud technologies are available to the market at this moment. So Google is very frank and gives you access to their offices if you ask, and shows you around how a great corporate culture with superb technologies get you to become a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. The technologies alone won't make it. You can make utterly stupid applications with Google's technologies. It is the culture of your company to get transformation. Going cloud is not the goal, but the means to a goal. And if you want to read or listen to some of what I've said before, well, not literally, but I want to get more of a peek about how you create great organizations, go and buy the book written by Eric Schmidt. It's the old CEO and chairman of Google. He's the one who made Google big in its first 13 years. It's called The $1 Trillion Coach. And what you will learn there is that there is a person who we hardly know, no one knows his name, who has been the coach about the most to the CEOs and senior leadership of the world's most impactful companies. Go out and buy it, or get yourself the audiobook. It's really a great talk. With that, I want to thank you all very much for listening to me. I hope you have been able to hang in there. And I want to hand over back to Bangalore. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of GIBS Business School, Bangalore, India, we would like to thank Mr. Dennis Groenveld, Director, Google Practice at Wipro, London, for sharing and enlightening us today regarding the corporate culture which Google work and thrive through their technologies. Once again, thank you so much, sir, for joining us all the way from Spain.
Thank you, Dennis. Wonderful perspective about Google. I just really appreciate your time. I know you are in Spain. Thank you for your time taking over in the weekend. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions. What I'll do is I will take offline questions, and probably we will take their contact and get back to them. Thank you, Dennis.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Am I audible? So good afternoon. My name is Mohan Kumar. I am going to start off of how AI is going to help in HR, right? This is the latest buzz. You've seen, I think you must have read about machine learning and deep learning. So we are now going to look into the perspective of AI. Before I start, I just want to give in an industry perspective. I know there are a lot of students who are into now placements or in the final year, right? I thought I'll just give the state of the industry and then we'll deep dive into artificial intelligence. Are you able to see my screen? If somebody can acknowledge it. So the first thing I just want to show you very new, very abnormal sort of things. You have a pet which is actually monitoring the joggers or walkers. This has been implemented in Singapore parks. Almost 80 parks they have implemented, and this has got all sorts of technology. The components will be AI, facial recognition. It could be thermal scanning for temperatures, right? Or it could be warning people for social distance. So this actually a pet robo or a pet dog keeps walking around along with the joggers in Singapore parks. So was implemented about 2 months back. So this is sort of things now we are seeing which has become a reality, right? So what Gartner predicted also in 2020, by 2022, the culture of sitting in cubicles will be gone actually. So they actually, I don't know, very ironic that they predicted that it will move away from all the pigeonholes, people sitting in cubicles. They'll go and work in their own devices and apps, what we call BYOD, bring your own devices. But in some cases, at working at their own place as well. But probably they didn't predict this pandemic. But the situation is become a reality now. What we call is new normal, that everybody is now working remotely, right? Almost 96% companies, whether it's global companies or India-based global companies, product and services companies, unless it is very important, then you end up going to campus. Otherwise, 96% of the workforce already connected and plugged in from their remote places, probably working from home or elsewhere. Right now, the point is we want to stop saying going back to normal. Instead, we want the future to come sooner, right? For example, we are still waiting for that vaccine, right? Our thing is, I think every day is now counting. We cannot afford to waste time. I'm sure the biologists, the people, the medicine people are working faster now, pedaling faster to get that future sooner. Likewise, if you talk about technology, people, processes, we are now wanting to get the future sooner. So I just want to highlight what Bill Gates said. See, sometimes we overestimate the change, right? We are only looking at next 2 years, but we underestimate the change that will occur in next 10 years. So I think this is what it is, right? We need to look at long term, whether it could be policies, government thing, or it could be health or any in the industry. Now we need to look in beyond 2 years now. I'm sure a lot of thinking hats have been triggered now. So we are going to see that thinking, it could be innovation or design thinking, creativity or entrepreneurship on the long term now. So that human beings can be sustained, right? We have to live another few, maybe million years. We don't know how long we're going to live, but we need really think at the long term as well. So I won't be surprised this session, a very ironic picture, this, in a few years, where the robotics people will take sessions, right? Already you see, instead of facilitators, teachers, I think most of the stuff are now being enabled by, online learning, probably WebEx and other stuff, right? You can see so many learning portals. So I won't be surprised that robots will be conducting all these webinars very soon, right? And also, I won't be surprised that in a HR context, that robo will be interviewing people. Actually, there will be having there will be having questions and answers answered by robots or AI-enabled bots we call, right? So this is going to be very soon. This is the next normal future. What we want looking at is the best practices or the solution for yesterday's problem, but we need now next practices. So what again, it goes with the term next normal, but next set of practices, next set of technologies. I think already Dennis has highlighted companies like Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. Well beyond, they're really thinking well beyond. What are the best next things that we can now address? Not only issues, also help businesses make sustain. Okay, so this is another picture. I just want to say that there might be a panel interviews. A bots or a robot might be taking interviews to a candidate. So this is not again very near, but probably sooner. In this scenario, what last 100 days we have seen, especially for B schools, there's plenty of case studies now. This is some of the things you would be asked in interviews, right? They will be asking you probably in your online GD sessions or in your domain interviews, HR, finance, and marketing, plus other MBA schools, right? You will have plenty of case studies. So I think it's the best thing now. At least be appraised of things, look at things, how companies are dealing with it from all aspects, right? Not necessarily from HR, from all aspects of business, right? I just want to give a very few quick minutes. I think we all are aware now education online as anytime, anywhere, any place, and that is reality now. Probably next semester will all be online. I think we're already aware of that. We are now looking at different set of business models. Digital transformation has really triggered, and I think from human values perspective, we need to show a lot of empathy and tolerance. And the skill sets will change because we need to now relook at next level of technologies, or it could be anything. It's not necessarily IT, it could be humanities, it could be in commerce, or any things we need to now look at, dig deep into different set of skill sets, what is business required. And the good news for millennials, because for them, by 2025, all the 75% of the workforce will be by the millennials, right? So that means you still have a long runway, and it's not necessary that experienced people will be displaced, but there will be times where the multi-generation will work together, and slowly, of course, the millennials will take forward, right? That is your future. Of course, the urgency of innovation and education will be continuous, and there will be disruption in businesses. Okay, and having said that, our future also requires a lot of redirection, rethinking. I think we already know a lot of in keep our humanity. We're now looking at every aspects, not just health, our well-being and everything. We have to now into microscopic level. We have to start looking at things. So, like, I just want to leave a thought that the future is ours, and definitely for millennials to take it forward. So I will highlight few things before I get into AI and HR. A little bit of digital transformation, and I think you've already seen this. What triggered is the COVID-19 has triggered, and what's supposed to have been 2 years of worth of things, now they've clawed forward, and a lot of transformation has happened in the last 2 months. Dennis has given so many case studies, right, on Google side, that so much of transformation, and they have so many engineers working in Google, not only Google, even other companies as well. So the transformation is very fast. Of course, technology ubiquity is about multi-channels and working on different devices and keeping, a continuity. The digital business, the nature of work will change. I'll touch upon a little bit how gig economy is going to come. People will work as a freelancer, consulting, right, crowdsourcing, and all sorts of things. How machines work, machines and human interfaces. What we call as organizations are now called social enterprises. It's like a community now, right? So these are some of the changes have rapidly taken place, and of course, people and technology together is going to make things. Of course, a little bit of automation will be there. Not just a little bit; it will start. Already, we have seen in each organization about 10 to 15% automation. but that is going to ramp up soon, right? So we are looking at technology is definitely going to be there, is going to enable the businesses. Again, when we say technology is a combination of robots, bots, and software and devices, and there are many other the ecosystems will help putting the business right. And in terms of disruptions, I just want to highlight there are a few things. I think we already know that some of the things like robotic process automation, expert system, machine learning, what we are going to touch upon today, video analytics, right? At least in Bangalore, we have seen now how in COVID situation, a local corporation, BBMP, how they're tackling using video analytics, thermal scanning. You see in airports now, people are checking temperatures, right? People are recording. So a lot of things are happening, right? Of course, this I just want to highlight. If people ask you, probably in the interview scenario, though you are a HR, right? Probably you will also be recruiting people from industry, right? Technology and other stuff. So they'll ask you what are the top 5 emerging technologies, where there's traction here, where there is the things like IoT, augmented reality, virtual reality, cloud, security, and in the workforce employee space, right? There's a lot of technologies are enabling, right? So things like this, at least be aware, be prepared for interviews or internships or projects or in terms of seminars and other stuff. So this is one question they'll be asking you. And I'll give you a very quick snapshot on the industry. I think dominantly we see health and life sciences, IT. Of course, when I say IT, it's about everything: collaboration, online. You have seen B2C, B2B, and D2C. E-commerce platforms. Education has gone online. So again, biomedical, bio. You talk about so much stuff in health, right? So the industry. So for people who are just about to finish B schools or into going to be looking at, so look at the opportunities next 2 to 3 years, right? So look at industries like insurance. Even some people have gone back to agriculture, right? Basic stuff. I'm sure there are. So you have to be looking at. You can't just say that, take it for granted that things will fall on your lap. So keep looking at some of the where there's growth, and I'm sure you will have plenty of opportunities. Again, some of the trends, there are plenty, right? Online content writing, somebody who's good, digital marketing, animation and gaming, even IT infrastructure, right? I've seen last 3 months, people are renting laptops and devices, desktops, right? That is a booming business. And audio and video collaboration. Today we are over the Zoom. So that, around 40, 50 players have already started, right? In India now we are going to have Geo who's going to start up, right? So things like that, there's a lot of things, traction and all. And of course, AI and machine learning. So that is one of the things. I'll go in a little bit deeper into that area. But so basically you get the gist of the trends where there's going to be opportunities for us. Even in mental health and counseling, there are opportunities. So keep a look on it, and then you'll pursue. And just very quickly touch base on the 3 parameters about, especially from HR perspective, how it is divided between work, workforce, and workplace. Of course, the workforce with like I said, gig economy has come back, freelancers, crowdsourcing. Work itself will be, the definition will continue to change with automation, and they will coexist. And there's of course the workplace. We already seen that it's already reshaped. We now with technology, with online learning, and the whole thing has changed. So I thought I will highlight the few things on. This is something on Red World and Orange World. This is a PwC report, again 5 years back. But if you look at it now, it's all come to reality. The bigger companies will soon disappear, right? What will survive is your orange and red world. What it means is small, is beautiful, collaboration, networking, and specialization. Again, the red world is about gig economy and the emerging technologies, innovation, AI, and future technology. And of course, we still need the green world keeping us honest, So they are the ones who will keep up, with sustainability. They protect the whole Mother Earth, and we need the green world. But I'm sure the blue world will slowly, disappearing. But it will take time. Okay, so I talked about Geek is collaboration, and you already seen. For example, I just want a blockchain person who's got domain blockchain, or it could be a Python programmer. They're earning about 5,000 rupees in Indian currency per hour, right? They can log into individual contracting, or they have websites where you can take some work, outcome-based work for 3-4 days, and then you submit your deliverables and you get paid for it. This is one avenue that you don't have to depend on large companies coming to campuses and other stuff. Okay, now very briefly before again I want to set the scene into HR world. I know a lot of people are into HR. I'm just going to focus on HR, but there are other finance and marketing. There are many avenues in HR. I think you already know that talent acquisition, recruitment, and other stuff. Talent assessment is all about certification, continuous training and development, and compensation is another big area. People can spend their lifetime. For example, TCS has got 150 countries. Wipro has got more than 85 countries. How do we derive compensation? Right, what is the optimum compensation? How much of bonuses and quarterly performance linked compensation? So you can look at rewards and other stuff, right? Learning and development is another area. Workforce relationship, that is about who keep with the industry laws, right? Law of the land works, especially with all the work permits and other stuff, migration. So they look after the lot of things. So they have, and back offices, of course, in HR. It's about whether it could be claims or expense, or it could be health, or it could be insurance or well-being, right? So these are some of the avenues. I'm sure you are already aware. I thought I'll give you another set of building blocks, right? I'm sure some of you are aware of some of the stuff, but somebody who's now going to be making your HRS specialization, please ensure that you take one of the things core, and it's like a team model, right? One, you have to have a breadth across all the HR, and the other one is going to depth, and whichever area. Now I can see diversity and inclusion has become now really it is it's gained traction. Analytics is another area, okay, and AI and analytics together is it's a big growth area in that. Okay, so again, if you would really need some more specialization, go into deep again, in terms of OD, organization behavior. And today morning, somebody is asking me, she's about to complete her behavioral. She's asking, is there anything I need to do in behavioral science? How that is being tied with management and in particular HR, right? So a lot of things are there. Just look at your specialized areas of interest and pursue that. I thought I'll give you a little bit of gist so that other aspect we all are aware of human capital. It's not just HR now. The last about 5-10 years now, we're broad based how people, technology, process. We are into human capital management as a whole. We're looking at. And I'm not going to go in detail about a little bit of challenges, but I'll just touch upon a few things. Of course, looking at fairness and transparency. Are we hiring the right people, promoting the right people, or are we being honest in integrity in every aspects of recruitment and selection, or even at retention? Are we looking at the brand? People have to join companies. People like Google, they attract people. One of the best, probably one of the best places to work, right? So they attract the best, the breed, right? They're looking at diversity and inclusion is another thing. So there are a few challenges, and how leadership is seen. Of course, pay is another thing, right? And this is something we have to look at whether all this can be solved with technology itself, or we're going to put a rigor into processes, or we have to change in behaviors. Each of them have got its own thing, and we need to look into it. And of course, just moving a little bit, what core HR today's world are looking about is AI based. So it's all about how much of employee experience, right? How much of performance of management teams. Organization should not be hierarchical, right? Well-being is very important, right? Today, of course, even my HR calls up at least last month he called up and checked on us, how his family and other stuff, right? Very important during this pandemic to connect with the employees, right? So what are the internal opportunities? And so these are some of the things. And also it is also about employees too. It is not just employers. You as an employee and millennials, of course, you have a different set of expectations. You are in a generation where you need affirmation and instant gratification. You would want to see that thumbs up, liking, whether you, of course, you have to be acknowledged, and we have to be changing with the times. And you're also looking at opportunities, right? So we actually at Wipro, we say every cubicle has a leader, right? That is our theme there. We have put, we had a poster. Okay, so we are looking at leaders, right? Building leaders and other stuff. So I thought I'll leave it to this. Of course, the skill set. I think you are already into the B schools. Most of them aware or in terms of assignments and other stuff. But ensure that basic stuff you are there, and especially simple things like advanced Excel and PPT presentation skills and labor laws, and this is all covered broad based. Okay, and some certification. So one of the questions people will ask you in the interview, what have you been doing last 3 months? They do know that you've been engaged with your routine studies, but they still want to hear from you what sort of certification and what sort of professional membership you need. So see if you can pursue. There's different levels: foundation, proficient, and competent. Different. Just have a look at each of your interest again and pursue that. Okay, now it's the main show now, because I gave a very brief about prerequisite, what a HR and what the industry is. I'll now go into a little bit deep on artificial intelligence. Again, it was, John McCarthy started in 1956, right? Very much he said that can machine learn like a young child, right? Using trial and error. So why it's relevant now is, now we have a lot of data, right? Huge data has been generated last 2 decades or last decade. I know we're all socially connected. India itself will have about more than 800 million smartphones and the type of things, social media. We know the patterns, the analytics and other stuff. So it's now become more relevant to apply artificial intelligence. So very broad definition as a Wikipedia or a dictionary is the ability to learn, understand things. It's about intelligence, right? And it's artificial is about how to make computers think, right? Think like machines. So this is something we will see in terms of different areas, deep learning and machine learning, and different how we use AI. I mean, very basic stuff. We all know what humans can do and what computers do, right? I think we know at this stage. What is interesting is your NLPs and speech recognition, voice recognition. But how this is going to apply in HR is what we'll look into it. Again, coming back a little bit, what AI and ML and automation can do. There's a lot of things. Sometimes they get intermixed. Yes, of course, automation is one part of AI, but AI and machine learning, as it is, it's about programming to think, right? For example, certain things robo cannot do. If you really look at CAPTCHA here, I'm sure you're used banking. There is a thing. I'm not a robo. There's a tick you have to say. But what I heard, even this can be cracked by advanced level of deep learning. For now, you cannot decode some of the superimposed images. So that's why they force you to have a human interface. They ask you to forcibly type. Okay. So on the other side, what automation is also gaining speed. It's also helping us, in terms of productivity and other stuff. A lot of stuff has been happening I'll cover in some of the things. So coming back, what AI is about, performing tasks, right? Visual perception, speech, understanding languages. Again, a lot of, in terms of Google-like companies, they are now, if you really ask Google Maps, they can even, I don't know how many languages, hundreds and hundreds of languages now they're translated, right? They can do a search and they can bring up results. So much stuff, right, on a regional basis and on a global, right, things like that. Okay, so what are the technologies which constitute AI technologies? So it's not just one bunch of things, it's completely it's together. Consortium or components has got many things like speech, rule-based engines or expert systems, robotics, right? NLP is one. So each has got its own, like I said, a key model. One is to have a broader aspect of knowledge and the other one is deeper, right? So you can always apply that here. And people have now become expert just doing one set of machine learning or in an area so I will show you where all this is being applied. So I just want another flavor a little bit on machine learning. How we make machines to learn, right? So machine has to learn by experience. So the ability to understand and probably based on could be sometimes trial and error, right? So for example, machine learning can recognize what a car is, what is an object, what is the color of the car, right? Or it could be, typical a car has got 4 wheels, but there is also a difference between a car and a truck. Now, truck has got a different dimensions. Probably it has got more number of wheels, or it could have other aspects as well. Now, the deep learning will tell you that is a truck, whereas machine learning will tell you that is the car. Right? I'm just giving a very basic stuff, but where machine learning is going to be used and helping us is we're going to have a lot of algorithms built. So the whole artificial intelligence, machine or deep learning is all built on algorithms, which is going to help make predictions. Now, I'll give some use cases. Where when the employee is about to leave a company, right? Probably it looks at the patterns, probably coming, of course, now we are all connected from home, otherwise coming late to office or not delivering on time or too often taking sick leave, probably genuine reasons, or probably not filling the timesheets, basic stuff, right? So the patterns, the algorithms will pick it up and alert saying that to HR or the line manager saying this person is now about to quit, right? So how do we now help that person to retain? So this is something I'm just wanted to start off. And some of the algorithm as is written using statistics and modeling. You already seen airline giving you optimized seat pricing. Google had, or dating sites. Some of the use cases where algorithms have been, even your credit rating, your credit score, your loan scoring and other stuff, right? So how, now coming back to how mimicking like a baby learns, right? How machines are looking at the data, the model, and for example here, it's going to recognize as the apple as red, it's a fruit, and it's got a texture as soft and round, right? Unlike you have an apple as a company and a logo. So it now senses that there is a difference between a fruit and probably a logo of a company, apple. Right, so it's also another fruit, yellow. So this is how in the basic stuff, how it's the data learning from the data and machine picks up. And in this case, I just want to see why I'm dealing into all this is finally you will see all your facial recognition, whether it's a fraudulent person coming and attending an interview, or somebody else, or they're scanning the emotions, right? See how much it is being built to start with a bouquet of flowers or a bottle of water, or so this is how it is dissected and recorded, and all the thing is stored, right? Machine is able to, and in a real sense, in a retail or in a sense, you got you can count because you don't need somebody to do manual counting thousands in the inventory scenario or in a warehouse. He'll go and count, probably look at the images, or even scan for fraud things, right? Original products and other logos and other stuff. Again, in retail scenario. Okay, so that is a little bit on machine learning. But coming back to deep learning, again, deep learning is all about a lot of things. We have restrictions on, constraints on machine learning. So deep learning, again, it takes huge data sets. That's why you have this big data of, I think you all aware of data, structured and unstructured. So now what we have done is we have gone next level to use everybody will use the same algorithms and other stuff, but little more advanced level, how we can mimic, not totally maybe very close to the human brain, and how it is going to be based on structures. And I'll show a little bit on deep learning as well. So I just want to summarize this so that when we go into applying AI into HR, you know that there are three components. Deep learning and machine learning is part of AI. And one of the questions they'll ask you in interview, right? You can't say that, no, look, I am an MBA, B school, HR, but at least they want to be aware, because if you're going to join a company where they have AI and other stuff, at least give them a basic definition of, in the interview scenario or in your discussion. Again, I'm not going to go in detail, but little bit of what type of learning you have, all pattern based, right? There are many things supervised. I mean, if I had to talk till the cows come home, it'll take days and days to even explain. But I thought I'll give a very gist of what type of learning in each area, how reinforcement works. And I would suggest, the college and academia world, get more sessions, get real deep experts into this, get how, continue this learning, because this is going to be the future for us. Okay, I thought again a little bit summarizing on each of the thing, how AI, machine learning, and deep learning, giving some examples, right? Okay, so what it takes to become all this, finally he said it's fine. All that is, it's about learning from B school, from domain perspective. Yes, you will bring the business knowledge, domain knowledge. Probably you have to be very good in data, right? Understand, interpret, and it needs all the modeling needs the data analysis, right? And a little bit of analytical problem solving thinking. And of course, the core is all about maths and science. You will be surprised that a lot of retired professors who retired in US and Canada and other part of Europe, they were asked to come back to work with a huge salary, almost 5 to 6 times what they were earning during their academic days. Right? They've been asked to come and help the startup companies to do the modeling and provide input to data science and other stuff. Of course, people get very misnomer, or there's a lot of things saying that, oh my God, AI is all about, this is not about computer science, right? Yes, there are other aspects of everything together, but much of the thing, like I said, modeling is all about statistics, regression analysis, clustering. I'm sure in your first semester, second, you must have done a lot of things. If not, get a book, read about all this, and get some more knowledge into how all this being derived, right? The models are derived. Finally, a little bit on business benefits on AI. Of course, from HR perspective, we are looking at employee productivity, employee experience, especially in onboarding. In terms of business benefit, customer experience. Today, with the curbside pickup or contactless delivery, right? Everything is now enabled through AI, right? How much of efficiency they're looking at it with automation and other stuff. And of course, cost is now going to be very, very seen anything. So in our daily lives, we have seen in Facebook, the face detection, or it could be a Gmail filter, smart, or your video analytics. If you are breaking the law, it will catch you with using the thing, surveillance. And again, a little bit broad aspects in terms of vertical and horizontal, right? Of course, HR is always there in the horizontal area. Look at the functional areas where, today virtual, voice to text, text to voice. There's so many stuff, virtual assistants. You're looking at data discovery, Dennis said, go cloud is a much, to store all these data and then we need cloud, right? A big cloud storage and accessing and secured, right? So that is where, and if you have to talk to devices, we use Internet of Things, which is IoT, it's known, right? And just extending, again, we have seen now a lot of bots and chat bots. Again, this all using deep learning, conversation AI platforms. You see, last 5 years in Bangalore, I believe every week there are 3 or 4 new companies have started, right? Outside of Boston, it could be Ireland or South Africa, and in Bangalore now, people have built a lot of things, these platforms, AI platforms. So look into it, and now I'll just extend. This is what customers are enjoying it, right? It's all of, the customer now not just looking at the screen and driving and other stuff. Everything they want now. Customers are feeling comfortable from using AI-based applications. Of course, now we're looking a little bit on from HR and hiring. How do we scrutinize in terms of volume? You have lakhs and lakhs of resumes or millions of resumes, right? How do I scrutinize? How do I get the best fit resumes? And if it's a manual process, you will be gone dead by the time you look into thousands of applications. Now with AI, with scanning and other stuff, it's much easier. It'll also schedule interviews, because it's not just within this part of the world. We also have now global workforce, different time zones, right? So it is able to look at calendars and make schedule appointments and other stuff, because we don't know which part of the world has got public holiday, bank holiday or other set of things. So it'll crawl and look into our calendars, probably look into individual calendars, and of course the chatting. The initial chatting and probably interview as well will happen over the chat. Now, in terms of retention, it's also looking at how, in terms of employee progression, what sort of, once somebody takes the one career path, it will enable to take a path. For example, if I have to do cloud certification in Google, right? Google Cloud Platform, what are the different types of, you need to know whether you're a functional or architect or an engineer, right? He'll tell us exactly, and again you go by baby steps and achieve that, and that things will tell you, will recommend you. Also, it'll give you the prerequisite and probably the sites to refer and do case studies and other stuff. Okay, of course, appraisal, it could be quarterly or half yearly. It'll see that last 10 years, what is your pattern, right? Where's your strength? Your 360-degree feedback has come from peers and others, right? So it will take the best of thing and from the employee. Of course, this is about framework on use case. From the financial impact, how we leverage AI is definitely in HR, revenue per employee, cost per employee, and return on investment, right? So a lot of questions you will be asking, whether now AI will replace human beings. I'll come to that. I know a lot of questions will be there, but at the end of the day, we also need to look at the cost, right? Because 72% of your expenses are employee salaries. Of course, with technology, some companies also have spent up to 6 to 7, 8% of their revenue into HR technologies, like AI and machine learning, deep learning. Okay, not only in HR world, of course, in factory, healthcare, it has taken. So again, a little bit, I thought I'll just give all this so that still we have to come few more slides to the HR application. But look at how humans are aiding machines, or vice versa, machines are aiding humans, right? So where you call cobots or bots, right, or domain training, that's where the humans are helping. The machine learning aspect is coming, right? And from machines, how it is helping us, it's giving predictions. The analytics itself is a big, we can talk about for days, how from data you get information, from information you get knowledge, from knowledge you get insights, and from insights you take a lot of decisions and actions, right? Again, some predictions, if you really look at analytics, you have descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and then prescriptive, right? What happened, why it happened, what's going to happen, what we're going to do about it. So again, you have both analytics and AI together, and machines are able to now help us do that prediction and give that insights, right? And it's going to tell agents and advisors and what is the right things. A little bit on use cases, again, it's going to tell us lion emotions. It will even check your people, or sometimes if they want to ask about your previous boss, the reaction it will capture, and it will give a summarize on the probably in the interview scenario. And I just want to highlight what is the 22 billion we are talking about in terms of just intelligent virtual assistant market. How it now AI has helped in well-being. At least is able to tell us it's a respiratory disease. Now it has come down to narrowing what is causing, right? I mean, there is a virus part of it, but now at least in a human autonomy, it has now able to tell that it's attacking our lungs and a few things there. And of course, in terms of pandemic, early warnings, tracking, forecasting, dashboards. So again, if you see in local BBMP, they've set up a nerve center, integrated management team. They're working 24/7, right? Till 2 weeks back, of course, now it is blown out of proportion. Nevertheless, they will ensure that everybody is traced and tracked and treated. So nobody can escape, right? We have all the technology now. So in terms of coming back to where AI is applied, of course, in compensation, projects, in terms of the type of work we are doing, remote working, other stuff. And even employee perception analytics, we are now using AI and other stuff. This is a glassdoor.com. It will give us, before you join a company, it will give an aspect about the company, feedback about the company, what ex-employees have given. Or it's other way also. The employer will now look at, okay, these are some of the areas we'll work on it. So all this was never happened, right? Last 5-10 years back. Now we are able to get sentimental analysis, and where data is also coming. I want to touch base very important data aspects as well. That we have recruitment data, job data, because we need data. Otherwise, this whole AI will not. Because we need that patterns, we need that history, we need that so that it can predict and different types of data as well. Like I said, it'll you will also know when the employee is going to leave, because purely because of prediction, combination AI and big data. And look at how today's world, how much very quickly we need to get real time. For example, in workforce, somebody I want the top 5% best performers, right? Otherwise, we need to go system of record or some automation, Excels. But today, in a touch of a thing, the HR will now get the data so quickly, real time, that they will have on their devices, right? So data, of course, data analytics is, like I said, is again part of the whole thing. You need to take into it. I'm not going to go in detail about limitations in terms of time, have time constraint. So a little bit on what it goes, garbage in and garbage out, right? All depends on what type of data sets, how we teach the machines, how the algorithm is set, how the rules are set, right? So some of the things you can look at. What are the challenges in AI? Adoption is a big thing. It's a mindset. Like I said, 16% of the companies have things, but there's a long way to go. Probably this pandemic will help. In few years' time, adoption will increase now. Of course, you also need investment in that right area, right? Right now, 6 to 7% of revenue, you're putting in investment for AI HR technologies. Maybe you have to increase more and thing. And of course, there are some few things which went wrong. Google, 2015, it mistakenly tags few people as an animal or so. Amazon off late has got an issue because people log in and say I'm on leave. Ideally, you should take it because people have COVID and got admitted. But by the time they came back, because it's a voice-based, assistant, right, all through AI, but they thought that person has left the company, that even terminated, right? So there are a few challenges. It's not hunky-dory yet, but over the years, I'm sure with all this maturity and adoption, we'll look into it. And we're also looking at how much of adoption we are looking at. And finally, the few slides we are coming to on how HR is HR AI is applied in HR. Like I said, we started with system of record, automation is done. Now we are now into engaging and we are performing, right? So we are looking at increasing the productivity, right? And a few use cases in different areas. So if you look at it in feedback, you have text analysis, mobile feedback, you have analysis in each areas. You're looking at learning and development, content creation. See how much of AI is now being, applied in each of the areas. So I just thought I'll leave a minute for you to see. Okay, so this again, I'll just drill down a few things on this. So if you look at how much of workforce planning and strategy means, see the key thing, at least in services companies or even product, how do we utilize the people? How people are going to be rather to be utilized and probably in consulting terms being chargeable, right? So unlike at least 10 to 15% people are on the bench, but we still need to have that forecast, not only quarter by quarter for an yearly forecast, and within each of the service lines, technology, verticals and horizontals. So we need to get accurate forecasts, right? So that is where we are going to apply AI-based solutions. And then we also need branding. For example, onboarding. Will the process is so much automated, right? Unlike we had, I think when I joined Wipro or much earlier than we used to have paper-based, even to open a bank account and other stuff, right? But today, everything is so much done onboarded. Your KYC, know your customer, is already linked to your bank. That bank details are given to your employer, right? I've seen last about 2 months back, we had a whole set of engineers, about 4,000 of them onboarded in a day. I mean, the process took longer, but they all started and seamlessly, background verification. They uploaded the documents, right? They ensure that everything is valid, and we also ensure the same person is joining the interview who gave the interview. So, of course, globally, I'm talking globally, there's about 40% of fake resumes. There's also about 22% of fake impersonation, right? Somebody else is attending the interview. Even today, to be honest, even customers are applying this technology to make sure the same person who has been for the thing has come back, right, to the interview. So the other one is also we are looking at how do we, like I said, retain. Retention is very, very, it costs almost 2 times to get a new person. Fact is, you have to ramp up, give them training, and align to each culture, right? So we cannot just let people go. So probably, like I said, the system will tell us or some prediction that based on probably attendance data or frequent absence and other stuff, maybe early indicators. And today's world, you're surprised that AI-based coaching also have started, right? Sometimes the employees might feel probably not a discrete environment to discuss everything. I'm not saying the whole life will be thrown in front of the AI machine, but some level of professional coaching. So it is now, I think that is the stage we are in now. A lot of personal assistant coaching is being enabled now. So that area, and of course, in terms of hiring, I'll go through in specific how we are helping in hiring. So this is the broad base where we have an impact on AI. So in terms of where HR and recruitment, specifically for people who are already doing this sort of work, or sourcing, very major thing. So much sourcing today. We are looking at candidates, right type of skill set, niche skill set, right? And we know that the candidates probably has got a profile in LinkedIn, social media, or blogs, or it could be associated with consortiums, organizations, right? So we need to ensure that we, all these are tagged and get a, view about the candidate, right? Or it's vice versa as well. The candidate also has to get a perspective of the employer. So like I said, sentimental analysis or the glassdoor.com could give a lot of data about the employer as well, right? And then the video agent-led video interviews. So I'll show you one where in a later slide that how actually a interview happens, how it is recorded, and how a feedback is given, all by AI sort of technology, right? Also, we are also looking at predicting, new hire performance and other stuff. And in terms of, again, I think I talked about coaching and this one onboarding and object setting as well in terms of performance management, right? A lot of people would want to also look at career path. They would love the company. They say there's nothing wrong with the company and culture and other stuff, but they don't like the type of role or job they're doing. Probably the type of domain they want to change, or they want, so that early things, right? That also can be looked into it, especially people who stay long term in a company, right? There will be some nudging and not forced nudging, but somewhere there'll be interventions saying that it's time that you upskill, right? If you have to survive a few more years. So because it's an evolving thing, IT is not just, every 18 months, there's new technology. So it will sort of nudge you and take up new things. And it's actually both ways, both for employees and employees. And a lot of psychometric tests we also fit in now in terms, at least in leadership roles, they want to evaluate, right? What sort of your strengths and where you're going to have areas of improvement. All again, AI is now helping this. Otherwise, you have one HR person with a support team doing this sort of thing, this sort of training, and huge training expenses, cost, and availability, and resources, and even physical presence. But today, it's in your own environment. The learning, everything happens. Okay. So again, in terms of payroll and other stuff, if there are anomalies, probably like we have 85 countries, look into it, where there is a thing, probably local compensation, other stuff, some of the automation. For example, if I have to submit my expenses, medical, very so easy now. I just have to scan it. There's a OCR technology which reads the old bills and other stuff, and it stores, and then it's able to, whether it's a fraudulent claim or it's a genuine claim, or by mistake whether I've done a duplication, right? So this is all again, it's all automated. It's not that somebody is looking through all this, things like that. Okay. And of course, other things are risk and absent management, fraud detection, so many areas you can just see in the whole thing how AI and this one is being applied here. And reporting, right? One other thing I just want to highlight is there is, of course, we should have a neutral bias, the unconscious bias. People, what happened in a few, without naming companies or without with due respect, there were certain times where only men were hired, right? Over the years, they found out the data. There was only few men were going on site, men were getting progression, and so only when we cracked the data, Then what we did, I mean, there are few things happened in other companies. So then they put a lady HR, right, first to start with. Then that's where your diversity and inclusion thing started. So equal, maybe better opportunities now for both thing, right? So those things were hidden, right? We never knew unless we looked at the data patterns, and really helped us. And today they can now give a picture how much of a diversity in any organization or any learning institution we can now look into it. So this sort of reporting, in a click of a button, we are able to look at it. Okay, so again, I'll just very briefly, I'll touch base on a little bit on types of corporate and staffing, how in universities is being applied, online examination, onboarding, training institutes, right? So I think we touched base here anyway, how much of machine learning, how much of data algorithm, it's like I'm summarizing this again. I'm repeating, but it's more of like a summary. What are the chances that candidates we can take forward? What is the relationship between hiring manager and the recruiter, right? What is the sourcing patterns? What is the expectation of the salaries? How do we benchmark with other countries or other technologies? For example, Google Cloud versus Amazon Cloud, right? We know, but I know it is apples and oranges, but we have to look into it. What is hot in the skills? What is customer buying? What sort of technology, supply and demand, and other stuff, right? So I mean, again, broad basing little bit on how much of now today we are looking at social recruitment, right? Referrals, for example, happens through peer level referrals. Also, LinkedIn is a primary. It's become like a Bible gospel, right? Looking at LinkedIn as a source for recruitment, right? Again, now the LinkedIn portal itself, last 4-5 years, is evolved. A lot of intelligence they have built in, right? After Microsoft taking over, now they have a lot of stuff into built in. They can see. That's why, as you log into, the people know exactly what's your interest, what is your contribution, what sort of a background, consortium, like I said before, right? Again, if I look in where AI continuing, how much of process in terms of backend, right? And now I'm a little bit talking about backend timesheets. It's a big pain, to go through, especially if you are going to have contract resources and all over the world, globally. How do I, get the contractors' timesheet? Then probably in some cases we may have to do their payroll as well, right? Hold their data, pay their superannuation, insurance, and as if you are the employer, you're going to do stuff like, right? Billing is one to the customers, and then a lot of other stuff. Okay, so the important thing is how do we build these databases, the candidate, right? I know, I mean, just to give an example, in one of the Indian bank, when they asked for 1,500 positions, you had almost in terms of millions, 4 million people applied for 1,500 jobs, right? Now, how much of data? How do I pass it? How do I get the effect? Of course, everybody is deserving candidate, right? You can't say that out of 1,500, who's the best. So you still have to look at the large database, your big data, and looking at the large pool of data, and then shortlist, and probably exam and elimination and other stuff happens, right? And then you have set of interviews and other stuff. But all this again, AI, big data, everything is helping us today, right? Imagine Indian Railways itself has got 25 lakhs employees, right? Imagine if you have to manage their career. Okay, so in terms of again search, is one of the best companies, Google. We are living with it, right? People are born with Google. With everything is about search with Google. By default, we are now doing a lot of stuff, advanced searches, the jargons, qualification, search criteria. If I had to put, the host college today, GIBS, it comes first, right? I know because I know I'm in the proximity. I know I'm in Bangalore. So Google says that there's no other GIBS. I know this is a 4, 5, 10 kilometers radius I'm living here, right? So it gives the top criteria as such. So things like that you apply into HR and other stuff. Okay, so I'll just, the interest of time, I'll just, again, this is little bit of machine learning workflow, how a recruiter relationship between databases and first level interviews. There are two set of interviews, and it's just a workflow. And then this is again a life cycle, end to end about every aspect. Again, you also, you have to think about everything today. It is just one bit is AI, one other is cloud. See, all this again, I think Dennis covered a lot of stuff on the cloud, Google and other stuff. So we are now looking at storing things, putting all this stuff in cloud. Again, cloud is another, big enabler in terms of thing. So people are, at least in interview scenario, the B schools I've seen already in mock interviews and others, they're asking to students, right? Can you tell us a little bit on cloud? What did you learn? What is about analytics and AI and other stuff? Okay, so this is what I was talking about. I just want to spend a few minutes on this. How really in a phone, AI-enabled phone-based interview system. I'm not saying I'm an expert in this, but I looking at I asked few people around. I'm just putting my things I collected and collated. So I think there are plenty of companies which are doing this now. How an automated call, what happens? Is there a genuine voice who's coming, right? Different types of questions and response, and leading and lagging questionnaires will come, right? And then how the large database, data we are going to scrutinize. So this is just a workflow. I picked it up. And of course, if you go to IBM Watson, probably, Wipro and many companies have built this sort of engines. And this has been there the last at least 3 to 4 years, nothing magical new. But I think the adoption is going to take time, right? How HR to start with sets a call to the interview, right? Who's supposed to, and then you have AI server. Again, this could be, in this case, Google, right? And the best part is of Google is you can, any time of the day, you can see the colors. So much branding they have done, lovely branding. You see that the spectrum or whatever the circular thing process in GCP, that is a Google thing, right? So if you look at it, all the server, it could be Google, AWS. Again, there are many platforms which host this AI server. Then it talks to a thing called Twilio, right? Which is actually a system. Again, it sends the number, right? It dials to that candidate, right? Probably candidates wish to choose, the right candidate. It might detect based on voice and other stuff. And then the interview ends, right? Then it's all been recorded. Again, the AI servers is stored there. Probably now what happens is it can give a ranking as well, right? Without any human interaction, because you would already set the algorithm parameters based on your gender neutral, or in some cases you can't have bias, right? So it will have all the algorithms set, what sort of deep domain, what sort of training that person has attended, certification, domain, industry, on-site experience if somebody has gone on-site. So things like that, okay? So it will capture all that, it'll get a parameter, and then it will now give a report. So this is what AI-enabled phone-based interview system is. So just, I thought I'll give, it's a very interesting, you can go and see, Google it, and get a lot of companies are, looking at this. Little bit of features, it's been, of course, now you can get plenty of features now, but this is basic. At least an interview will look into it, right? How much of whether the system can understand natural language, can it handle multiple question sets, right? Or can they, upload their own question set, automatically schedule multiple interviews simultaneously, because it maybe in a different zones as well. Okay, so last few slides here. artificial intelligence and the analytics. So we'll see where it's being used, in which area or in which functions, right? Definitely, at least close to 50% we are seeing in recruitment and hiring. That for sure, it has been successful now. So, like I said, adoption will increase. In fact, this COVID situation will also trigger that, fast track this whole thing. When I talk about employee, it could be internal to the companies, the employee management, right? If you're a generalist, how you manage, things like employee experience, right? How we analyze policies. Because, for example, if I have to have a chat with my HR, all I have to do is trigger a robot chat or chatbots and ask if how much of entitlement, right? In a COVID scenario, what is my maximum limit? Is my insurance covering my extended family, right? My parents and in-laws and other people, right? Things, it'll come out with a chatbot, right? So things like that. So workforce automation with the help of robotic process automation, I'm sure you all heard of that. Now, just about, again, that has got traction. So 22% less, in organizations that are using this. For example, I have a few people who are working in this. Now they're looking at bots at a commodity level. They can even write, company can buy bots for 10 or 15 bots. It's like just buying few, very commodity stuff to improve the workforce, or, basically avoid mundane routine jobs, right? So they can buy these bots, and which is priced at that, lowest limit level now. So those technologies, it's wonderful. Right now, in terms of fraudulent compliance, it's looking at, like I said, if somebody puts fake bills as part of claims, or somebody has taken a taxi which is bloated, or short trip bloated, and it can sense, right? Of course, we cannot compromise integrity is one, right? In all organizations, in our both professional and personal life, right? So it is able to detect now the fraud and other stuff. And like I said, diversity, inclusion, it's looking at very detailed in every project. Are we having the right team, right? Are we having the right structure, right? Equal employment opportunity, right? Those sort of things. Now, the definition of diversity is it's not just male and female, it's extended to other aspects as well. So those are some things it's going to look into it, whether you're into in terms of recruitment, or even at interview level as well, right? Okay, so this is the, I call, in 15 years time or 10 years time, I thought this is the last picture. I'll leave it. This is the work and talent. People will definitely embrace machines. Maybe initially, yes, people might reject. People have a fear of losing jobs in anything, right? Of course, security is one thing. If you go to your Maslow's theory, your security, your innate things you have to have. But there'll be time which we have to adopt as we move along. And then, of course, we will let the machines take over. I mean, at least for, I'm talking about routine, mundane. The whole idea is to not replace. The whole idea is to ensure that people get, occupied with embracing technology. People are creativity, right? People are into innovation, and people in the recruitment team or the HR team must be focusing on the employer rather than on the transaction, looking at things like that. Probably that relationship will build, because that person will have more time, because the other mundane other stuff will be done by the robots, right? With AI and other stuff. So some of the companies you should be able to look at it. Again, source from I've taken from CB Insights. So look at AI is not just one component. If you see the whole blueprint, the components is about conversation bots, the robotics, the cyber security. It's very, very important to have secure data, because one of the things people are still hesitant is they cannot compromise, especially when it comes to personal data. And in some part of the world, they have something called GDPR, right? Global data protection as a stuff. They're very, very thing. You know, we cannot let things. So security is another big aspect in AI. So if you look at it, imagine there's so many things goes in behind the scenes of AI, right? Commerce, of course, machine, and it's about IoT, right? Things like this. So you might end up working for these companies as a B school. Probably you are in a pre-sales, sales, and marketing. It's a wonderful opportunity, right? This is the growth area, and more and more you get. You know, once you join, you get so much of things. The advancement, you get immersed into all this, and you know, you set the scene. So I thought a few more things on. I'll leave it for the students mainly. Just go into a lot of MOOC providers. You have Coursera, Udacity, edX, NASCOM has come up with a lot of future skills, especially you know, a little bit of leverage, knowing about technology, right? Look at Future Learn. I mean, all these courses are today is almost free. They're not even charging, right? At least the foundation level. At least your awareness has to be there. Go through all this. A little bit of this deep skilling. I would suggest, if you have time. No, even simple Google certification will do, right? Probably Google. I've spoken to few. They have now aligned with universities. They're offering free certification. You know, Amazon is offering free certification. You know, Microsoft is offering free certification, right? So deep skilling, again, go through that mile and just everything. So I just thought I'll leave with this wonderful slide. Future of HR is now. It's actually, the word is stay relevant tomorrow, right? Be prepared for the next normal. And very soon, you know, you will have HR bots. It's not very far away. They will be on the scene quickly. So with this, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to pause, and if there are any questions, and I'll just wait, and I think then my next speaker will be there soon. So start with any questions anybody has got, or anybody can read from the chat also. Or if you can put it in the chat also is fine. Can HR be taken as a major specialization? Yes, of course. You know, like I talked about, there's so many avenues, right? HR as is a very broad thing, but under HR you have multiple streams. I think I talked about, you know, compensation, generalist HR, learning and development training, right? You know, or somebody who is well versed with laws, right? Industrial acts, right? Workplace safety, so many stuff. You know, it all depends on your interest, but you have to you know, go deep little bit, and based on your interest. Or the other area is HR analytics. I do a lot of sessions on business analytics and HR, but that is another area where we see a lot of traction. And also implementing HR systems. For example, you have Workday, then you have SAP, Oracle, implementing HR, human capital system in you know, in organizations. So for that, maybe you may have to take a little bit extra in terms of you know, learning product. Probably, yes, it costs money, but probably as a student you might get some you know, discounts and other stuff. Okay, anything else? Any other questions? So they're saying you said that soon bots will be used for HR. Would you recommend freshers to take HR? Yes, again the same question. Yes, I think this is the growth area, right? Like I see, I'm not saying HR is again a commodity. For example, in organizations, don't take me as past stone. One HR will look after around 600 to 700 employees, right? So it is not that there will be 700 HR and then there will be one employee. So again, the job depends. If it's a larger company, you have pool of HRs. If it's smaller company, maybe there'll be maximum one or two, right? There might be HR lead and you as a HR person. So it's not that I'm saying that jobs are limited, but definitely there are jobs. Of course, the function, HR function, finance function, procurement, it's all part of organization, right? You cannot run a company without HR. Okay. So somebody is saying, I do believe in concept AI and great innovations. Yes, thank you. I think probably after seeing this, you might get excited. Is AI applicable in financial modeling? Yes, definitely. In fact, the whole AI started adoption first in finance, manufacturing, other stuff, right? So finance, like I said, your credit rating, your modeling, they'll have a look at your personal finance. The AI will look and tell you what sort of credit score. It's all now done with AI. So finance industry were the first one who actually did a lot of interesting stuff with AI, and they're continuing to do so. Asking what sort of AI is suitable for MSME in India, the cost aspect. Yes, I think you may have to do a little bit of due diligence. A lot of effort is going to keep the cost low, because there's no point buying huge set of servers and licenses, and with cloud is helping us, right, pay as per use. That is where the cloud is helping the whole AI again, right? So the cost definitely with cloud technology, due diligence, I would request the companies to come and do a demo, or look at the product literature, or connect the marketing team. Probably go through your RFP process, sales process, or evaluate such that definitely there are products which are okay. Then somebody, I'm going through the chat window here. So experts are predicting that entry level will be gone by 50% next itself. Is this true? No, in fact, it's the other way around. I don't know who has given this thing. In fact, like I said, 75% of the workforce will be millennials, right? Very pure thing is about cost. Why would I hire two freshers who have got a long roadmap, runway? They can be with my company, hire them. So that I think that, and of course, little bit of experience is required. But I've seen a lot of next year or two, I'll see a lot of opportunities for freshers, and probably you may have to go through that training. That's why I'm saying your prerequisite should be very strong, right? Basic hygiene, whether you have 70% in your subjects, whether you've done the right project, right internship, or even when you go through, they will find out your attitude, right? They will have that, in the interview, they'll find that STAR technique: situation, task, action, and what is the results. They'll dig deep and they'll know what is your interest. So don't worry about things. Yes, in the short term, there have been issues, in terms of things, but definitely there will be opportunities for freshers. And because the businesses have not come to the mainstream, they're going to take time, because they have to do strategic planning. HR has to sit with the business, so that has got a little bit, because people are, they have to relook at the pipeline, businesses. So, but when they come back, you see already numbers. I've seen in other organizations or even universities. I don't think nothing has stopped. Probably where they need 100 people, they must have reduced to 80 or something. But I don't think, very rare I've seen the offer has not been honored. Is robotics will be very aspect, I mean, in education? Yes, of course. You are teaching your core studies. I think it will be taught by robot only. Who else? Probably, I'm talking about not just for universities, I'm even from schools. Already I've see the Byju's of the world. You see the learning platform. You know, a third class student is able to understand atom, the definition of atom, because wonderfully created, right? So all the content creation, research, and probably it's all automated now, right? They have a click of a button, they know which syllabus, what is that level of thing, right? Your pedagogy, and this has come already. Okay, anybody else? I'm happy to another couple of questions. So I'm just browsing few other thing. Give me a sec, please. I just looking at some of the questions. Meanwhile, I also have Dennis. Dennis, Dennis, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I am.
Dennis, can you just throw a little bit on light on Google again in terms of, yeah, I'm sure you have interacted with many engineers and some of the stuff.
Show some light on AI. Yeah, of course. I think Google AI and big data in general go hand in hand. As you alluded to in your presentation, AI falls and stands with quality of data sets, and quality of data sets has to do with the size of the data set. You know, the bigger your data set, the better you can learn, if you will. Google happens to sit on the largest data set on the planet. It's called YouTube. It's called Google Photos. So because of that large data set, Google is tremendously good with artificial intelligence and machine learning in general. If you're interested, you can go on the web and find the playgrounds in there. There's a lot of pre-cooked algorithms that people can use. You can, for instance, show photos and have AI determine if the people there are happy or not. They can even do that for whole football stadiums. So yeah, Google and AI, hand in hand.
So Dennis, I have another question, Dennis.
Yeah, sure, go.
So Dennis, in terms of competition, right? So the products, would you know any of the products in terms of, I'm not comparing Google or Amazon. So who are the leading technology companies in this space?
To answer in just a couple of minutes. One of your last slides, you've shown all these companies that are working in this space, and they all do a fragment on it. I would say that from an HI perspective, let's say the machine learning perspective behind AI, you really see that driven by open source components. PyTorch, for instance, is a famous one. And TensorFlow, which is a Google grown but brought to the open source ecosystem technology. So I would rather look at technologies that are out there. Many of them are free to use and free to build upon. AI and machine learning are really driven by open source communities at this moment. So that's what I would focus on rather than companies. Companies apply those technologies. I think the famous ones are, for instance, Palantir, who do a lot with fraud detection. They do a lot with governments and things of that nature. Hope that answers it. If the audience has questions as well, please shoot them in the chat. Happy to answer if that's needed.
So one last question, Dennis, just a highlight on a little bit on security aspects. So what sort of, I think data privacy is one, especially when it comes to HR, I touch base, but how technology is enabling, ensure that security aspect is covered, both from cloud, or it could be everything aspects of cloud, of security.
There's two elements to privacy and security. One of them is legislation, I would say, and the other is the openness about it. Of course, data needs to be secured. It only needs to be available to those people that have rights to it. For Google, you would have a lot in the news in quite of a negative sense at this moment. For instance, by saying, "Oh, Google knows everything about you," or "I don't want Google to know where I am." If you don't want Google to know where you are, don't use Google Maps. But what I think is forgotten often is that companies like Google are very open about what they know about you, and you can actually get the data dump about what they know of you. But have people ever wondered why your telephone rings if you're on the road? It is actually your telephone company that knows exactly where you are. Otherwise, it can't make your phone ring when a call comes in. So with technology, security, and especially the privacy elements of it, it is all around. It is your mobile phone company that knows where you are. It's your bank that knows exactly what you're doing, where you are. It's all around. CCTV is pretty much in every high street at this moment. So we probably just need to redefine privacy terms and come to grips with the fact that it is part of everyday life already. It's just that some advertise it a bit more, that they have your data while others don't. Question coming in: what's the
Dennis,
leading role for cloud transformation?
one
I'm
more
going to be
question
biased with that.
from academic.
Okay.
Are you able to hear, Dennis?
Yes, I am.
From the academic point of view, from B school, right? What else? I think I spoke about a little bit of certification. What sort of things you would recommend to at least know a little bit of, can they start off with machine learning and for a B school student for more? I mean, I can understand engineering and other stuff. But from India, we have people from commerce background, arts, BBM and other stuff. And of course, we also have engineers and other stuff. What sort of you would recommend as a starting point so they can go and get a little bit of additional knowledge?
Well, the field is so wide that I would say follow your heart and follow your passion. Transformation in the cloud and artificial intelligence have opened up different inroads from all kinds of studies. We've just touched upon the privacy part. So even humanities is at this moment studying the impact of this transformation. If you're interested in the engineering side of things, I would say it's math that needs to be your background in order to get there. But from a legal perspective, if you want to become a lawyer, very important. Laws need to change in order to govern everything that we're doing. It touches all aspects of life. So I would say, don't be afraid that you're studying something that might be obsolete. It won't be obsolete, it will change.
Thanks, Dennis. So we are just waiting for our next. He's just joining from London, so he's having challenge a little bit joining. So we'll take a probably 2 minutes pause break now. People can stretch and then. So is there any other questions from participants? Meanwhile, while we are.
So there is one, Mohan, and that is in question, who are leading company in the world for cloud transformation? I think you and I are going to give a biased answer. That's Wipro, right?
Yes, who are leading company in the world? Wipro, will say. So they can go and see third-party reports. They can see Gartner reports that Wipro is leading already, the IDCs of the world. So the third-party advisors have already talked about Wipro in cloud transformation. So one of the other thing is experts are pretty. I think I covered that, right? One of the things at entry level is psychometric tools too can be included in AI. Yes, I believe so. A lot of companies are working in that behavioral thing. Again, there could be, you may have to research further and which of the companies are doing that. I heard that psychometric tools are already integrated. So feel free to ask any questions, because very soon we will have Gavin also joining us. Meanwhile, maybe I'll try and conduct one quiz as well. I have a quiz for you. Let us see if we can. I'll start off the quiz. So you are able to see my quiz? Yeah? Okay, the first question. HP, Google, Microsoft and Apple have one thing in common. So put your answers in chat. Let's see. So these companies have something in common. So go for it. So anybody put? So I'm just giving you a clue. What do you see? Chat. Is anybody chatting? Giving answers. So what is this one thing in common? And just the clue here. Okay. So they all started in garage. Participants. Okay, next question. So when was the term artificial intelligence founded? I think I already told about. It was in 1956. John McCarthy, right? Okay. So how is artificial intelligence developed further, and how are errors in the AI system corrected? So a little bit technical, but you can guess from here, right? Very easy. You can guess how is artificial intelligence developed further, and how are errors in the AI system corrected? Is it through the faster internet connection? A further development is not possible since they are already ready-made programs, or by high storage capacity, or by learning. Any guesses? Okay, somebody has got the answer right. D, through learning. Okay, that's good. You're all fast learners. Okay, so another few questions. Which of the following attributes can currently not be mapped by artificial intelligence? Intuition, creativity, empathy. So there are people are working on it. I think it is not there yet. I think somebody is already giving answers. Okay, artificial is not able to simulate intuition, creativity, but the engineers are working on it. So what is machine learning? Choose 3 answers. Very simple. This is your interview question. Very good. Somebody has already given the answer. So it's a combination of artificial intelligence, machine learning.
But thank you so much for your patience. I'll kick off. If at any stage you have a question, or the audio or the technology doesn't work, please feel free to just get the faculty to interrupt, and we'll work from there. I know you guys have been at this for quite a while, so I'm going to try to maybe keep it a little bit upbeat. I'm going to talk about supporting and enabling digital transformations through cloud transformations. And I guess the important thing for this as well is you're all from a business school background. So I'm going to try to take, although this is a technical subject, I'm going to try to take a business view of the technical subject, because we as technologists desperately need more business understanding and business support. So hopefully this will be useful for all of you from a financial point of view, from a commercial point of view, from a legal point of view, from a business benefit point of view. Okay, just a little bit about me. Thank you so much for the introduction. Gavin Williams, I'm Irish. So this is an Irish flag here, not an Indian flag rotated 90 degrees. I have a background in economics and business 20-something years ago. I'm from Trinity College, and this is a picture of Trinity College. And if any of you have seen Harry Potter, they use the Trinity College library as the back scene in one of the Harry Potter scenes. This is what the library looks like. And I'm a keen cyclist, and I work for Wipro, and I'm privileged to work for Wipro. So a little bit about digital transformation. Yet another definition. You know, digital is one of these things which is incredibly hard to describe, but you know it when you see it. Digital, as we describe it inside Wipro in the training which we do, is something which helps you to find new value in the business, in what you're doing. So new value streams and deepening value streams in what you're already doing, and finding new value streams at the edge of what you're doing, and exploring new things and evolving your business. But it means that you need to be able to do it in a very experience and design-led way, in a very agile way, in a very inclusive and modern way, which connects not only to your internal people, but to your suppliers and to the ultimate clients and customers, etc. You know, people can say it's like the experience, the user experience you get with Apple, the ubiquity of Google, the brand stickiness of Facebook, or the transformation of Netflix. Everybody knows that Netflix started off as being a red box. I will post you a DVD, you post it back to me afterwards. And then the engagement of TikTok, which has suddenly embraced the world. Now, you might have an opinion about whether TikTok's any good or not, but you know who they are, and those people who are using this quite well. So it's technology, experience, process, and behavior. Now, I'm going to go on a slight, because I know you folks have had a difficult day today and an intensive day. I'm just going to talk about why this transformation is important for a second. This is maybe something to share with your kids, if you have them yet. The horseshoe crab, successful and has been around for 600 million years. 74% of all the time that life has existed on Earth, the horseshoe crab has been around for. Sharks have been around for 400 million years, pretty successful about what they do. The dodo was around actually for about 8 million years. It's gone now. And by the way, if you can see on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, the amount of time is less and less and less. Hominids, we've been around for 2 million years. Recognizable hominids, and for those of you who are movie fans, that's Bahubali, which is an awesome movie and I highly recommend it, is less than the teeny tiniest speck of that little white where the mouse is on the end. So you think to yourself, okay, great, find something and find something successful and then stick with it. At the same stage, however, you have these mass extinction events. Each time they come along, and 70 to 90% of all life of all species on Earth gets wiped out. We don't know when the next major extinction is, but possibly we might have caused it. So let's zoom in a little bit on the timing. Stone Age ran from about 3 million years beforehand. Bronze Age about 3,000 years before current time. Iron Age about 1,200 years. Then the Age of Antiquity, the Middle Ages, and I think this is the fortress of Seringapatam, and then modern history from about 1500 to the present. Inside that, you then have the Industrial Revolution, the first one, which happened in 1760 to 1840. Not a lot happened in the first 200 years. Then we have the first Industrial Revolution, followed swiftly after by the second Industrial Revolution, which was all about, the creation of cars, everything coming up to kind of World War I, when they discovered mass producing and mass factories, etc. The third Industrial Revolution was computer-assisted robotics and automation. And one would say that we're now in this final Industrial Revolution, which is 1985 to 2000 and something. The interesting message to take behind this is technology and the rate of change has never been as fast as it is today, and it will never again be as slow as it is today. So, for many of the companies who are thinking to themselves, oh, I'm doing absolutely quite fine, and I've been, operating in this manner for such a long time, everything's quite fine. Always, always, always be on the lookout for change. Why is this important? Looking at the Fortune 500 companies, I'm sure your business school teachers already told you this, but out of the Fortune 500, even sort of 60 odd years ago, only 52 of the 500 Fortune top companies are still around. That's a 90% extinction rate. And they reckon that actually this is accelerating such that, for example, the Standard & Poor's 500 firms, half of them will be churned through within the next 10 years. So it's very, very important around the fact that we need to change, and transformation needs to change, and the world is now in a digital mode, so we need to change in a digital way. How does this relate towards cloud? Here's the first definition of cloud. By the way, in the chat window, tell us if you have already heard of the word cloud or not. Let me just see if I can get my chat window to show here at the same time. Give me 1 second while I just switch across to here, and I'll do the Q&A chat window, and I'll drag it across here. There we go. So cloud, the definition of cloud in one definition is ubiquitous availability of a large set of constantly evolving IT services, leading innovation, securely delivered at hyperscale and charged as a utility via consumption. Now, where is this important? This is because the cloud vendors, the cloud hyperscalers, at one stage were investing $1 billion a month. I'm not sure how many that is in lakh, but it's, I guess, a very large number. $1 billion a month they were investing. Now, at that kind of level of investment, if you're not, if you weren't at the beginning in that area, you might as well just give up. So HP, for example, in what was it, 2009, 2010, they spent $7.4 billion buying a search company called Autonomy, and that acquisition failed, and it failed to deliver shareholder value. If HP, which was a massively dominating company at the time, had taken that $7 billion and started to build cloud at the time, just think where HP would have been. Now, HP could throw $20 billion at trying to become a global cloud provider, and they won't catch up with the likes of Amazon, Microsoft, or Google. Potentially the only company I would say with deep enough pockets to leap into this really at this stage would be somebody like Apple, who has the cash to do it, but probably doesn't want to do it. Now, the definition of cloud has the key point about this is it's the largest concentration of evolution and services and investment that you will actually see probably at any time in sort of human history until the next major disruption. So they talk about what does this mean? And there's different discussions around, for example, infrastructure as a service and platform as a service and software as a service. But I don't know if you folks have seen this definition of pizza as a service. So in traditional IT, you buy all the ingredients, you know, the pizza, the tomatoes, the toppings, the cheese. You have to buy an oven, which you're only going to be using once to cook your pizza. And you build it all yourself, and maybe you don't know how to make a pizza before, maybe you do, and the pizza comes out so-so and maybe inconsistent. The infrastructure as a service discussion is where, you know, you basically take and bake. You go to a location. They've already got dining room tables. They've already got the electricity and gas and the oven and fire, and you just build your toppings on top of that. Platform as a service is actually, you know, at this stage where they're delivering a lot more. It's more like pizza delivery to you. And finally, software as a service is where just you go out and you eat. Now, that's the definition number one of cloud: global access to a huge, rich set of services. My definition of cloud is almost something slightly different here. It is the underlying fabric for any large organization, which makes up the greatest amount of scalable and enabling innovation. To use in the same way as the iPad was the best tool to do things that you never knew you wanted to do until you had an iPad. It literally created the market for iPads. The cloud is the best fabric or mechanism for you to do the things you didn't know you needed or wanted to do or were even able to do before you had access to the cloud. So the idea behind the cloud on this one is, if somebody else has spent, you know, $1 billion, or as I say, multiple billions, building a fabric, building security, building the best and most environmentally efficient data centers, building a global fiber network of industrial and hyperscale, and has all the services underneath it, then your idea is just stand on the shoulders of giants and use that. So all of this allows you to focus on your own digital journey. Now, you folks are business folks, so it's very, very important. I mean, if you haven't heard of a guy called Ronald Coase, then you should absolutely look him up. He won the Nobel Prize for economics for his theory of the firm, and I'm sure you guys know it very, very well. But it's all the philosophy about what you should buy and what you should build. And the cloud allows you to focus on your digital journey. So you look at everything you need to do and you say, well, 55% of that I don't need to worry about because the cloud vendors have created that. About another 30% I don't need to worry about because folks like systems integrators like Wipro have solved those problems. That's 15% of the things I should be solving, which are unique and differentiating to my business. You know, so for example, if you have Pepsi and Coca-Cola, if both Pepsi and Coca-Cola implement an SAP system for enterprise resource planning and management, there's no differentiation. That's not a differentiating item for them. What's differentiating for them is their spread, their marketing, the partnerships and tie-ins, and they should be focused on that. Now, by its very nature, cloud is focused on change. So keep that message behind you. So at any particular stage, I'm an economics guy, so I think in graphs. At any particular stage, you can take your IT costs, which is optimized for today, and you can mothball it, and you can buy exactly what you need, and you can get the cheapest, buy everything you want, get it at the cheapest moment you can possibly get, and you can probably drop your prices all the way from here down to here. Now, the cloud's not going to be able to hit that price on the one-off because you know that it is cheaper. If you're going to be using a car every day, it's cheaper to buy the car than it is to catch taxis every day. Well, the interesting piece around that is that organizations do not stay static. The markets move on, the technologies move on, user preferences move on, and external events, such as, for example, COVID hit you. And the point about this is that if you do everything yourself, then your change events will cost you a lot of money each time they come. Whereas if you're relying on the cloud to provide the underlying fabric, then actually it is the cloud which is designed for change, and your change events cost less. So, I mean, for example, I'm sure COVID has been a massive issue for all of you. And you can see that even, for example, in bread producers across in England, the grocery producers who were previously producing 19 different types of bread, you know, brown bread, white bread, sliced bread, seeded bread, sourdough bread, naan bread, focaccia, ciabatta, and. And when this hit and the lockdown happened, they had stock which was rotting on the shelves, and they realized that they needed to actually retool all their factories simply just to produce standard loaves of brown bread and white bread because the demand was off the scale for that. So there's an opportunity in that, but you need to understand how the change is going to impact your business. Now, what you see previously is in previous technology sets, when you had to work on capital expenditure versus operational expenditure. And typically under capital expenditure, you need to do a lot of thinking. You need to investigate a lot of options. It's very, very expensive. You need to then say, I'm only going to buy this if it's going to run for a particular period of time. And so what you'll see here is the previous expectation of product to market was slower. You did pilots, you ramped up to scale, you were mature in the market, you would sunset and you would expire. However, what you're seeing now is you need to be able to ramp up quicker, fail faster, and then ramp to global scale faster, and then quickly change to the next thing that you're actually doing. So the pace of the product management is super important. And cloud allows you to do that because that was last week's answer. This is this week's answer. And I can just stop what I'm doing and retool and do something else. Now, the interesting discussion here is for those organizations that are able to make the change, COVID has actually really helped them. There's certain organizations, such as Waitrose, whose stock prices has gone up by a factor of 4 or 5. Logitech, the cameras we're chatting to you, have gone up. All the cloud vendors, all the technology providers, their stocks have gone up. So it's been a very disruptive time. Let's talk a little bit more about the benefits of cloud, because there will be a lot of people, unfortunately, it is typically with inside technology, on-premise technology people who aren't necessarily the proponents of cloud, because you're disrupting their world. But I'm just going to take you through some of these things so you folks who are business folks can understand. So when you see here, you have normal optimization, and your normal cost will generally go up over a period of time. It's just, these are one of the things which happens. Unfortunately, for example, in many of the organizations, if you have a one-size-fits-all IT, then the guys who don't need a lot of IT or need very light IT are not served, because they're actually not able to be provided for by the enterprise. The one-size-fits-all for let's call it the middle, these guys on the left are paying too much for functionality they don't need. These guys on the top are not getting what they need, and you get the abandoned minorities on the other side. Cloud allows you to actually build a catalog of different types of services to cover each part of your market to get the most value. Now, the second discussion around this is about asset management. So I presume, being in business class, all of you folks have talked about assets, depreciation charges, fair market value, balance sheet revaluations, and. The challenge is that at any one particular moment, you could probably buy those assets cheaper than buying them from the cloud. But as Moore's law continues to work, those assets it's like buying a house in an area where the property is going downhill. So what you actually find is, a year later, those assets are undervalued in terms of their resale value or the market value or their balance sheet liability value, which is actually often less than the depreciation line which you're running. And then obviously everyone has heard about the value about cloud, which is you buy for the valley and then scale to the peak. So typically, for example, this curve here is your electricity provider. It's very familiar to you for the electricity providers. They need to know that at 9 o'clock in the morning, when everyone cooks their breakfast and switches on the toasters, I'm going to hit a peak of electricity consumption. I need to build for that, despite the fact that in the meantime, the curves below it, I'm over provisioned. Well, actually, with a cloud world, you get to size for that, and you get to go over the peak. Now, in the second decade of cloud, because cloud's now been around, it's in its second decade, the discussion here is all about innovation, change. So if the first decade of cloud was all about, I can provide you vast hyperscale servers to run your business applications at a lower price than you can, because I can buy them very cheaper, and if they break, I'll fix them. The second decade is all about artificial intelligence, speech and natural language recognition. So for example, one of the companies which we've been doing work with actually will record both incoming documents and text and conversations, and do real-time sentiment analysis to understand the sentiments of the customers, so the brand loyalty of those customers and the ability to sell more and retain those customers is higher. This is the area of innovations where cloud is driving today. The trouble about cloud is there are some pitfalls. So this is my stormy cloud picture here. Cloud is not a technical project, and in many cases it's ill served by being led by a technology person. It is changes in the operating model and service catalog, and I'll come back to that in a minute. It's a change in the economic model. You folks would have heard of something called zero-based budgeting. Cloud is driven by those kind of business ideas, not driven by this is how I did something yesterday and now I'm going to do it with maybe a new coat of paint on top of it. There's consumption pitfalls. So one of the interesting things, so you folks again are business people. You might have heard of Jevons paradox in the second industrial revolution, first industrial revolution, where the efficiency of coal usage through technology improved, and everyone was worried that the consumption of coal would go down. Actually, the consumption of coal doubled. So the less coal I need, the more coal I use was the issue. Because coal opened up new opportunities to use. Now, the thing that you folks as business folks need to be aware of around cloud transformations is that even if the unit cost goes down, but the supply is infinite, then the total consumption may well go up. So you have to be aware around that. This next slide is super important for any business and any business transformation. IT costs typically average across industries of about 4% of revenue. And then you think, well, in certain businesses, like, for example, banking, that could be up to maybe 7.2, 7.3% of revenue. And in certain areas of around certain parts of fast-moving consumer goods, for example, in AB InBev, the beer maker, I think they're running at about 1.2% of revenue. So that's great, but actually the real magic for cloud and digital transformations is in a business-led cloud, which represents the 96% of revenue, and the 192% of revenue, which would be if you double the size of your business. And also for us as IT folks, business has deeper pockets and a faster time to decision than IT because it's core to the customer and shareholder value process. If you can show something that, for example, in these business scenarios, if you can show through a scalable ability to manage AI-driven chatbots which help answer clients' questions better, you can demonstrate customer intimacy, or you can show information out, for example, with sticky brands like Garmin or Fitbit, the customer intimacy side of things, then that drives your revenue up. If you can show, for example, here's a great thing around banking, where they have this, what they call the wealth management side of things. The only trouble with rich old people is they keep dying, and you then now have rich young people, and they have a different preference. So if you have better ways of engaging with them in digital channels that enabled by the cloud, then that's a business-led cloud discussion. So obviously inside the supply chain, if your ability to completely replan and re-gear across your entire supply chain and understand the entire implications of all of the logistics through the power of technology can be done through something like COVID implications, then that's a business-led discussion. If you can retain your client, your people, that's a business-led discussion. And if you can manage things like mergers, divestitures, etc., these are business-led discussions. And this is where you folks from the business side will really drive the cloud transformation. Now, a successful cloud strategy means that you have a business strategy that the business cares about, business change programs, IT aligned to that, and then cloud supporting the IT discussion. If IT and cloud is not connected back to a line of business, it will never get enough funding, it will never get enough success, and it will never deliver the value that you folks are looking for. There are often challenges. Here's one. I'm sure you guys have heard of Peter Drucker. I'll just pause here for a second. Faculty, can you guys still hear me okay, by the way? I'm guessing yes.
Sir, can you repeat?
I was just saying, can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes. Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Okay, let's keep on going then. So I'm sure you've heard about the culture eats strategy for breakfast. I had one client where they say that we have the problem of shared reality. I can't do this. It's too hard and it won't work for this reason, this reason, this reason. And 13 people will tell you why something doesn't work. After a while, you agree with them. A new person comes in and now there's 14 people telling them that it won't work. So culture eats strategy for breakfast. And the only way that you can do this is by tying into the line of business needs. So you're going to have management buy-ins. You need to have a business case. You need to work about risk and regulatory discussions. You need to worry about the governance. You need to worry about how much the transformation is going to cost me. You need to worry about your internal staff. You need to worry about silos and pockets. And you also need to worry about your existing estate. So in many cases, they have what's known as monolithic applications. And monolithic applications are traditional applications which were built in a CapEx heavy model where you write all this complicated, what's known as a big ball of mud or a big ball of spaghetti of monolithic applications. And being able to unpick those applications is a big challenge, a big challenge. A slight technical item is the infrastructure resiliency. In the cloud, the fabric is resilient. Don't worry about that. But the expectation is that the resilience that you have for your application is built at the application level. So for example, if you want to make sure that your trading system, if something goes wrong with one site, you know, an airplane crash or something like that, that it's backed up to the other site. Traditionally, you used to actually have the hardware connected to each other and providing that resilience at the hardware level. Now you need to have the applications talking back and forth to each other and building it at the application level. So there's a lot of discussion around that. There's also a lot of discussion around, you know, lock-in and connectivity and latency. You know, there's a lot of things which you do need to think about as blockers and challenges. None of them are insurmountable. It's more a question of let's lay them out, let's understand them. But probably the biggest issue, and this is why I have it written down here in red, is the human factor, which goes back to culture eats strategy for breakfast. I have never seen a business case in 20 to 30 years succeed in a customer where the client didn't want to do something, and you get many times they'll sit there, they will literally sit there with their arms folded in front of them and disbelieve you. On the other hand, I've always seen business cases succeed where somebody has an open mind and thinks this is possibly the right thing to do, but give me some information just to make sure I'm confident about this leap of faith. And this is all about, you know, tying it back to the digital strategy. Now, this is something that I guess you folks will all understand as business people, or hopefully you will understand as business people. I have seen lots and lots of cloud transformations, and everybody talks, first of all, about the technology strategy. So you get some guys who are super excited about, oh, I can now do these things with Kubernetes containers. Oh, and by the way, I prefer Docker, and I prefer the Pivotal implementation of this. Oh, Pivotal's rubbish. I like the Google Anthos implementation of this because their scalability on X, Y, and Z is different. And they're talking about whether the screw is should be nickel or steel on the deck chair, on the chair, on the deck of the ship, and they're talking about something which is important but insufficient on its own. So you get lots of people who have technology, and then it's technology with no purpose. So you get this big problem. What if I built it and nobody came? Then because unless the cloud has, for example, an economic model behind it, so this includes the business case, the changes, the method in which you do chargeback. Here's an example. With one major mining company I did a project for, a global mining company had highly complex IT systems. And the upstream part of that system, and they just basically allocated IT costs across everybody. When we went to the cloud, we were able to do the granularity of the cost associated with responsibility-based accounting, such that we said that everything was just life support for people doing business transactions, and your business transaction inside procurement goods receiving at the warehouse door is actually quite light on the system. Her business transaction in the CFO office running the month-end piece is reasonably heavy, and his business transaction doing demand management and supply chain forecasting is super heavy. So the costs need to get allocated across that. Also, the petroleum business is a lot heavier on the system than the iron and nickel business. Now, what happened when we did that? You suddenly got some people who were, instead of everybody complaining about the cost of IT, you suddenly had some people who were complaining vociferously about the cost of IT, and a whole bunch of other people who were like, ooh, that's better. And actually then you get to value-based pricing, where you then start to say to yourself, well, if I take all of the costs, like an insurance company, if I take all of the costs that IT has allocated against that particular piece, which you can do with cloud because it's consumption-based pricing, you suddenly realize that that line of business isn't profitable. Then you guys in the strategic business start to then turn around and say, right, we should carve out that business, sell it to somebody else, and focus on this business because it's overall a lot more profitable. Now, the challenge is that you can't change those financial models and achieve the financial outcome with the same people in the same jobs, doing the same thing, incented the same way. So you need to change your operating model. Now, if you've changed your operating model, then you also need to work about how you're going to change the applications. How do you actually achieve the transformation? How do you manage the security? So you can understand that there's a lot of interlinked things around a cloud transformation. So it's not just, hey, I want to do a digital thing, I'm going to use cloud and I'm done. The answer is actually, well, yes, but if you want to transform your enterprise, you need to think about all these interlocking dependencies. Now, here's a quick snapshot on the business case here. It's a total value assessment. So you have the cost, today's cost savings against the future cloud costs minus the current operating costs. Is this positive? Is this negative? The transformation cost, which maybe you might recognize as a one-off cost, as a one-off transformation cost, and recognize it as CapEx, or maybe you might allocate it differently. But you have your stranded cost write-off, and then the transformation migration costs. Then you have a monetization of the risk reduction which you are creating by moving to cloud through a reduction in technical debt and a reduction in other risk. And then you have the benefits, which are the what can I do? How much faster? If I could get my product to market, look at the insurance companies. They say, if I could get my product to market 6 months earlier, I can make all of my money in the first 6 months before everybody else piles in on it, and the margin disappears. So how much is your increase in speed worth to you top line? How much is your increase in agility and your ability to expand into new markets worth to you top line? Unilever's business strategy is move into new markets as fast as they can. In the new markets, premiumize as fast as they can, and in mature markets, drive costs down as fast as they can. This is, you monetize that top level. Now, this one, I would love to talk to you for about 5 hours about this slide on its own, but it's probably a little bit eye-watering, and I know you guys have had a busy day today. But the important difference, which I emphasized before, is that previously in a CapEx-related model, everybody would think about what they needed to do, for example, around disk storage. They'd all have a big think, and eventually somebody would write a big check to a company like EMC and buy a big SAN enterprise storage. And from that moment onwards, the answer is EMC storage, what's the question? Or the answer is my Oracle database, what's the question? And then you ended up with horizontal lines, like you had the Unix line, the PC line, the mainframe line, the Cisco CISSP line, the Tivoli application line. It was all horizontal, based around these big expenditures, and nothing was aligned actually. So nobody, it's like you had all the different chefs in the kitchen focused on themselves, and nobody cared about whether or not that was the best way to align to cook the best meal that you can cook. So now it's actually, everything is pivoting towards being vertically integrated, powered by cloud at the bottom. So for example, instead of horizontal slicing, you will have one person who's responsible for myaviva.com. Aviva is a big life management piece. It said, like, everything necessary for the functioning, the optimal functioning of that is in a vertical stack, and you can do that in a cloud model. Every Every dollar has a purpose, and every person has a home. And it's a lot more agile from that side. We need to change the people in a cloud transformation. So typically you have a lot of I-shaped people. I hope you guys have heard about that. So I'm deep in vertical. I've been doing widget X, Y, and Z for 20 years. Sometimes you get T-shaped people. So I know a bit about a few things, and I'm deep in some areas. Then you have, you know, X-shaped people who are not terribly deep, but their great ability is to synthesize and synergize between companies. And actually more and more often now we need to have people who are pie-shaped people, where you actually have multiple depths, so full stack developers. How do we change that operating model? Achieving success and leaping the chasm. Hit them with hearts, minds, and wallets. So if you want to make a digital transformation successful, enabled by cloud, you need to have leadership buy-in in the first instance. They need to help drive a culture. You need to be communicating this, you need to be piloting this, and you need to have incentives. So for example, get the leadership to commit that they're going to do these things, and get them to have 30% of their remuneration pivoting on the successful digital transformation. Now, the challenge you're going to get, again, is the stranded cost of poison pills. Today, your IT cost is $100. Cloud can do it for $70. That's great. But actually, I can't switch off all my IT costs until everything's gone. So actually, 60% of my IT costs are still staying there anyway, because I'm committed to that anyway. So actually now I'm taking my $70 for the cloud, I'm adding $60, meaning my total cost has gone up to $130. Okay, no business case, let's not do anything. Despite the fact that cloud is cheaper, today, Monday, it doesn't make sense. Tomorrow, Tuesday, it doesn't make sense. Actually, across a period of time, it makes a lot of sense. But so you need to be able to leap the chasm. So I often say to businesses, if you were starting your business today, what would you do? Oh, of course, I would build it all on cloud. I would do all digital, all cloud. Okay. So what you have now done is you have defined the best version and the best, most competitive business you can be. And anything else is you deciding to be less competitive than that. The challenge which you need to do is understand that you need to be able to deal with the sunk costs. Here's a technical slide for you folks. As you look to do migrations on cloud, what you need to do is you need to run discovery tools across your estate. Those tools will go out and they'll look at all the little servers looking at each other. They'll work out what application software is on the servers. They'll listen on the network, and they'll listen which servers are talking to which. Oh, this guy always talks to this and this guy responds to this. Therefore, these servers need to be treated together, and therefore these servers need to be treated as an application ecosystem. Let's put them together, etc. And then you look at these and you work out how you will slice and dice your estate into the appropriate logical groups. And then you move forward from there. There's different application paths. There's what's known as lift and shift, which is I've got this thing here, I'm going to fail it over into the cloud and just move it straight across. There's a fresh build. There's, refactoring it, which means, for example, I was running on a particular version of a database. I'm going to modernize that database and put it to somewhere else. And there's a replatform, for example, where I'm moving Oracle to Postgres, or I'm moving SQL to Hadoop. These are technical words, and I know you folks are all business folks. Let me just take you through, however, as you do this, and you are thinking about business risk and how you manage business risk and how you optimize this. If you look at this slide here, you've got lots of different types of business processes, and some of them have old technology and some of them have new technology. Now, you can actually just say, okay, well, as old technology hits end of life, I'm going to refresh it and put it onto cloud. So that's quite easy to understand. Just whenever something falls over because it's old, I'll just refresh it. you actually end up with then the scenario on the right-hand side. It's easy to understand, it's easy to explain, but actually now you've got half stuff on cloud by process, half stuff not on cloud, which means then that your teams need to have twice as much knowledge, and they need to be able to manage the intersection between on-prem and cloud, and they need to be versed not only inside VMware and on-prem technologies, but they also need to understand cloud technologies such as Lambda functions, etc. So there's a pro and con on that you guys need to think about. The other alternative is taking it process by process, where you say, I'm going to do all of my internet banking in one go, or I'm going to do all of my supply chain management in one go, or whatever the process is. And that's easy to understand, but obviously it costs more, and you need to balance that as well. And so where to start if you're taking the journey? I would say understand that whatever you want to achieve for your business and for your digital transformation, chances are it's achievable with cloud, and it's achievable easier. I think I mentioned at the beginning of the discussion, cloud without digital doesn't have a lot of purpose. It's a technology looking for an answer, but digital without cloud is gosh darn difficult. So understand what you're trying to achieve, and understand where the potential leap is. Build that strategy, build a business case, manage the three factors which you need to deal with at any particular stage. How much transformation cost I'm willing to spend, CTA, cost to achieve, what the benefits are for that cost, and try to monetize those benefits in a fashion which is kind of equitable, and what the risk is of that change. And then you will build a portfolio which has, okay, I could do all of this stuff very, very quickly, lots of benefit to it, etc. But that's a lot of change to take on at the same time. Okay, let's stagger that one out a little bit. But now if I stagger out the initiatives which I want to do, I'm not hitting enough benefit for my cost. Okay, let's move these ones around. So it's managing the portfolio, the triple portfolio of cost, benefit to achieve, and risk. Build your strategy, build your business case. Do not be afraid to change organizational silos. So here's an interesting, folks. I mentioned Ronald Coase before. He's an awesome guy to read if you haven't read already. I mentioned Jevons Paradox before. Awesome guy to research if you haven't already. And the third one, which is also interesting, Conway. In 1963, I think it was, he came up with a discussion which said that IT technologies and architectures tend to reflect the organizational structure of the people who are doing it, not necessarily the way you would build if you didn't have if you didn't have an existing organizational structure. So when you think about, okay, how am I supposed to deliver a cloud transformation? Oh, well, the security guys are over there doing the security stuff, and the infrastructure guys are over there, and the network guys are over there. Of course, I'll have a security stream, I'll have an infrastructure stream, I'll have a network stream, I'll have a server stream, obviously, of course, as well. I'll have a Unix stream, I have an Oracle stream, an application stream, maybe some business analysts, I'll have some this and that and the other. And you have all these different pieces. And you need to understand that in order to be that fast digital organization, you need to say, okay, break the organizational structure, take all of these different people and say, guys, you are the high performing team, work together as a team that has security, networks, all the elements together in a single team. And you build the organizational structure around that. Now, the trouble is that's going to affect, well, that affects people and that affects their jobs, etc. So what you need to be able to do is work out how everybody everybody is able to pivot to new jobs and new roles and responsibilities and be excited about it. And if there are people who are genuinely blocking that digital transformation, then you need to work out, well, are they still the right people to buy into this vision with the company, and maybe need to change. So there's strategy and business case, the economic model, the changing, the financials. There's no point in trying to make any financial change unless any technology change unless you're changing the financial change, the security, the applications, the transformations, the integrations, the organizational communication, change management. Build that strategy and business case. Now, pause here. Don't spend 9 months doing it. Sketch it out. Get it so you feel it's kind of correct, and then that continues to evolve as you do your pilot of your technology. At the same time, you learn. You refresh your organizational alignment and vision. You implement those changes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes and change, because again, here's a fascinating thing. So there's a massive bank in the US who had an application error which took down everything in the bank across East and West Coast. Because they were on cloud and they have what's known as immutable infrastructures, where I don't care about the server, I can just tell the cloud guy to chuck it away, delete the server, and build me a new one. They then basically said, I don't know what's wrong with it, but here's what it should look like. And they went, and they just pushed out a change to everything, and they were back online in 3 hours across the entire complex IT systems and architectures. So inside cloud, don't be afraid that if you've made a mistake to say, oops, that was wrong. The good news is I haven't paid any money to buy all these servers and licenses and storage and everything else like that. Can you just chuck all that away? And this is what it should look like. So you enable and train, you realize and you monitor, and then you keep the course corrections on your evolution. And that's me. I'll pause here. So I haven't covered a lot of the areas of cloud and technology, but because you folks are business school people, I've tried to anchor some of it towards the business elements, but I'm here to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Dear participants, if you have any questions, please can you post it in the chat? Mr. Williams, could you check your chat box?
I don't see any questions.
It is next to the participants that they are sending you privately.
Oh, okay. So participants, more. There we go.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, I see a chat window here. And I don't see any private questions. I just see from okay. Sir, please share your PowerPoint in my mail. That's very useful to use. Okay. I'll have a discussion about that. It's currently 100 megabytes. I'll look at how I can shrink it down. There's probably too many pictures embedded in it, but yeah, I'll definitely look at that. And I would probably share it with the faculty versus sharing it to any individual, and then let the faculty work out how to share it out properly. Yeah. There's some more questions here. Security and cloud services. And what, in the present situation, what type of jobs? Okay, so just a quick, I'll answer a couple of quick questions around security and cloud services. It's a complex thing. let me just say at the one level, the cloud is like, for example, let's look at Amazon. Amazon's web services is probably one of the most attacked services on the planet. You know, when you're running tens or if not hundreds of millions of servers running all the different applications, people will be trying to attack it. Denial of services attacks, intrusion attacks, and the base level of the security of the cloud is extremely high and better than better than any organization will be able to build for themselves. So if you know, I love the fact that you're an important business and you have 5,000 servers with their applications that you need to take care of. If you multiply that by a factor of say 10,000 bigger than that, then you understand, for me as a cloud guy, how I need to cover that. So the base level of the fabric is, you know, in terms of physical security, in terms of network security. For example, every time a hard drive burns out, Microsoft shreds the hard drive down to 2 millimeters, and then they recycle that. If you look, for example, what they also work out is security around ignorance. So Microsoft's cloud section in Dublin is application managed by the cloud people in London. And the reason why there needs to be a 300-mile difference is nobody will ever accidentally be in the pub that evening saying, gosh, I had a busy day today. The JP Morgan systems went down. And then the infrastructure guy goes, ooh, that was when I had to change all those disks in building 5, corridor 10, row 6. Ooh, that's where the JP Morgan information is. I'll steal that information. So they have all of that level above that. But the security which you need to layer on top of that is entirely up to you. So the biggest challenge which we have is people will take their on-prem security algorithms and security packages and say, just put that in the cloud. And it typically doesn't work and typically doesn't scale. So you need to look at cloud native security and the way that they handle that. In the present type of work, what jobs are necessary? I would say there are two types of jobs necessary. There are business transformational people, which are folks like yourselves, who understand the application of technology and are able to sit at the intersection of understanding technology and understanding the implication of those technology sets. There are also a lot of jobs for people who are like full stack developers. So I understand how to instantiate an application. So I know it's possible. I'm a business guy, I know it's possible. I go ask this other person. I'm a technology guy, he's asked me, and I know how to build it. So having that sort of the cloud certification is very, very important in that area. And I would also say, in the current scenario with for example, COVID, etc. Here's the deal. All of the hyperscalers have had incredible growth during COVID because people have needed to move towards remote and distributed IT services delivery, and people have needed to radically change their businesses because of COVID implications, whatever it might be. All of this has driven cloud work. So I'd say, you know, getting certified on any of the clouds and working in cloud technologies is a great thing, and the jobs are absolutely there in cloud and digital transformations at the moment. In terms of storage, the discussion around the storing capacity, or how long you can store the data. Well, obviously everything costs money, but in terms of storage, we have not yet hit the point at which we are running out of the ability to store on a global level. So even though, for example, storage technologies continue to increase, There are new ideas around holographic storage. If you look at 2018's Microsoft presentation, they're doing holographic storage, and it doesn't degrade. So what they'll do is they'll etch it into 3D on a piece of glass, ruggedized glass. Obviously there's a storage cost. The biggest issue that organizations have is that unstructured data typically tends to grow at 35% compound year on year. So I don't care whatever amount you have today. When you do 35% compound year on year, you end up with a lot of storage, which causes issues around information clutter. There are jobs for you folks in actually helping organizations identify the difference between information of transient value and information of retainable value, and work in that area there. How to protect the data from hackers. So there's a number of technologies around, for example, zero trust. So back in the old days, organizations used to be like, big walled cities. So you would have on the outside huge multi-level firewalls in all directions, and a tiny little window where you would have your website poked out from the rest of it. But actually, more or less, if you're inside the organization, you were kind of already inside the building, and the level of internal security wasn't as high. That has now moved towards the concept of a modern city, where the city, you can drive in and out of the city as much as you like, but but actually it's hard to get into the buildings of the city. And actually, more importantly, maybe you get into the buildings of the city, but your pass card only lets you onto certain floors and only into certain rooms. And so the idea is that security devolves to the lowest level of the application. And then the second piece which you actually have to this point is there's this new concept called zero trust. So zero trust networks, zero trust applications. Nobody trusts anything. And anytime you want to do any interaction from one system to another, be it me on a keyboard or an application talking to an application or anything else like that, the idea is that you do not have credentials to do that. For that particular transaction, you request credentials. You are given the credentials to authorize that transaction, and your credentials disappear afterwards. So that helps a lot in terms of managing the security and managing, managing the hackers. And obviously, if you try to do it, if you don't have the appropriate credentials, you just can't get in. And if you try to do it more than a number of times, you're blocked and damned. But let me give you another example on the security side. I'm by no means a security expert, but the difference that you actually get in modern cloud written applications is something called decoupled architectures and asynchronous communication. So back in the old days, you would have application here, a pipe between the two of them, and they would talk back and forth. And this allowed you to get in here and tunnel across to here. But actually now, and the challenge was that your ability to flex on both sides, and if this application, we suddenly had a surge of requests here, this application wouldn't be able to eat them enough in time. It would slow down, and you would get dropped transactions, and then it would all fall over. Actually, asynchronous applications means that I can connect to a message queue here, and this can connect to 1, 2, 5, or 2,000 applications on the back end as we scale up and scale down. Now, what's interesting from a security point on that one is you can treat this as a Dropbox, because this application over here has no knowledge that this application even exists. His entire job is simply to post requests up to this sort of message box in the middle. This application, and he has no access, there is no internal access. This guy only ever goes up to this box to request specific things that it is looking for. So even if you manage to push a letter shaped the wrong way to try to break something, this guy only looks for letters which are shaped, envelopes and letters which are shaped the right way, and pulls them down. So this guy only pulls, and this guy has no ability to get in. So a lot of this is also helps with the security, but I am no way a security expert. If you want to work in IT, I would say jump online, get yourself Google, Amazon, or Azure certified. You will absolutely have a job off the back end of that. However, what you guys are doing inside business schools, you should also be looking up concepts such as responsibility-based accounting, transformation program management, supply chain optimization, zero-based budgeting, etc., 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 because you will be the people who unlock the IT discussion. When I started my career a long time ago, the reason I went into consulting is because I knew I wanted to do stuff with computers, but I didn't want to be the person that was left behind as the business moved forward. And so I wanted to make sure that I was always had a business angle to what we do. And this is why folks like you go on to the GIBS Business School.